Greetings, everybody. Keith here. Hoping everybody's having a good day, enjoying life, living life, and loving life. Coming at you tonight, talk about some child abuse. Whose fault is it? We might have an open panel, depends on how it goes. But I'm going to be here for a little bit. I got a few videos we're going to review as it relates to that topic, child abuse, and whose fault is it. In the meantime, I want to remind everybody, please hit the like, share, and subscribe button. There is a PayPal link down there for anybody who wants to share some love. And let's get into it, because child abuse is a topic that will never go away. Just like the issue of God, it will never go away. And when it comes to these children, essentially, you moms and dads out there are the God or gods to these children. You are their hero. You are the ones they look up to. And when you dismiss that and put those obligatory responsibilities of parenthood onto somebody else in this modern society, it becomes a distraction. And it shows that possibly you are distracted from that very godliness. Again, this is the mammon world that we get distracted by, the materialistic, and it seems to supersede the spiritualistic. So we're going to take a look. We're going to start out with this one, which is West Virginia couple sentenced in historic child abuse case as adopted children testify. This is from WCHS Eyewitness News from 6 days ago. So it's relatively recent. And when I talk about those children, again, when we placate that somebody else can better take care of our children, or somebody else placates that they can take better care of our children, we end up with a system of foster care and adoption that seemingly is for the best interest of the children. But again, I'm urging people that if you understand the best interest of your children, it would only be because of you knowing the best interests of yourself. And when we fall victim to this mammon society, where we think it's in our best interest to follow the manual instead of the spiritual, we may seem to be misguided. And that's what I see. I came from a broken family, as many of us have. I've been through the foster care, and I was adopted. And I'm telling you, though I came from a broken family itself, the adoption and foster care system is not what you would consider a well-developed family either. And yet that's what they placate. It's in the best interest of the child to give them something better than their abusive, drunken, alcoholic father and their dismissive mother, and put them in a foster care system where they end up in situations even worse because it's hidden. It's not brought out into the open as a broken family. It's hidden because there are contracts involved now, and people have reputations on the line. I think it's disgusting that people give up their responsibility for their own children at any level. I think that's where it breaks. So let's listen to this, because this is atrocious. This is just over 6.5 minutes. We're going to speed it up. And let's listen to this.
Both of you refused to accept responsibility throughout the trial and still here today, which makes my job a lot easier. And instead of apologizing today, because you never have said you're sorry, but what you did do was put on one of the most reprehensible, narcissistic defenses that I have ever seen in my years of trial work. And may God have mercy on.
And that's the narcissism that I just pointed out when people placate that they can do something better. I think that's a narcissistic view. I think it's only natural that the natural parents take care of the natural children and do the best they can. I don't think there is a qualifying standard in nature. It is just do the best you can.
On your souls, because this court will not. Please stand.
Blistering words.
Yes, may God have mercy on your souls, because I will not. And like I've said many times at the closing of all of my videos here lately, I let people know I love you, but I don't give a rat's ass whether you love me back. Because in the end, it's not up to me to judge you in any way. So I don't care if you hate me, and I don't care if you don't respect me. That's between you and God. What's between me and God is what I feel about you, and I don't need to express it to you other than to tell you I love you, and I don't care how you feel about me.
From Judge Mary Claire Akers as Jeannie Whitefeather and Donald Lance were sentenced to decades in prison today, answering to their historic convictions last month of human trafficking and forced labor. Now, this was a case that stemmed from the October 2023 discovery of 2 teens locked in a shed in Sissonville and revealed years of abuse and neglect of 4 of their adopted Black children. Whitefeather was sentenced.
I want you to know this happened in 2023, and it's just now coming out in the news as their trial ends. Why is it a system takes so long to come to the necessary qualifications of these court cases and their guilty verdicts and all of this, when the record itself is a large part of the problem? When you look at that record and you understand the language in it and you understand the laws, these foster care and adoptions are merely contracts. Like I said, they're under Title 4D contracts. And if you're not actually part of that contract, then you shouldn't be foster parents. You shouldn't be adopting children. You have to understand those contracts, and that's all they are. Like I said, I was adopted, but accordingly, that's merely a contract. So when I was, quote, adopted, and they, quote, changed that birthright familial name, that is unlawful. You cannot change my birthright because you have an interest in a contract and you placate through your narcissistic statehood parentage, that false patriarch, that you can somehow change that. No manual can change the spirituality of one's true legacy.
To a maximum of 215 years for human trafficking, forced child labor, civil rights violations, and child abuse and neglect. Her husband, Lamb.
Now, I want you to understand these people went through full adoption, and it is because of the actions that they took on those children that they charged them with trafficking, because that is not the intent. If you have an intent for the best interest of the child, then you damn well better stick to that intent.
Was sentenced to 160 years max for similar charges. He was found not guilty on the civil rights violations and had fewer child abuse charges than Whitefeather.
And this is one of those things, again, I love the people that adopted me. I love them with all of my heart. But there is something that is wrong in my eyes, in my soul, with them. When at 50 years of age, that mother comes up and tells me that the police are my authority. Where does that come from? Does that come from her living her entire life under a false contract, or under a contract to a false patriarch? I think so. I think that's the reality that I myself am facing today. I don't see too many people living in spirituality. They're living under a contract of a manual existence.
First time in state history that human trafficking charges were ever brought on the state level. Prosecutors were able to prove to a jury that Whitefeather and Lance brought 5 adopted Black children to Sissonville in May of 2023 from Washington State, made them do manual labor, and neglected and abused them with physical punishment and a lack of basic necessities.
And I'm going to tell you from firsthand experience, and it's not from every foster care, but this is something I did experience. And I'm telling you, when I was in foster care, I don't know about the other kids or anything, but I know when I traveled from home to home and I packed up my belongings to go to the next place, it was in a brown paper sack, a set of clothes with the essentials, toothbrush, hair, or toothbrush, comb for my hair, things like that. Nothing else. And I remember one home where I got out, and as soon as I got out of the car, the lady of the house grabbed my bag and told me to go ahead and join the others in the backyard. they were back there waiting for me. I didn't know what to expect. But when I got in the backyard, being about 8 years old, they handed me a shovel and told me to start digging. And what are we digging? We're digging up a hole in the ground to build a pool. Now, a bunch of little kids with the guy out in the backyard digging a pool. That's fine and dandy. You think it's, wow, that's interesting. Yeah, you get to go swimming. Not necessarily so, because in 3 months I moved to the next foster home and the pool just got finished. I got to swim in it once. And I'm not saying that that's manual labor, that's slavery. But I know it sure felt like it. I know it feels like Indian giving when you get a bike for Christmas, and then when you move to the next foster home, the bike doesn't go with you. I understood from a very young, early age the thing about the manual existence in this material world, and I saw a lot of souls empty with no spirit.
All while receiving adoption payments from the state of Minnesota. Pinal County prosecutors holding a press conference this afternoon after securing the max sentence they were seeking.
I am so grateful for the opportunity to work with the children in this case. They are so wonderful, so smart, so funny. They are going to do amazing things in this world, and I'm so grateful to be a part of getting some semblance of justice for them after.
Whitefeather and Lance have also been ordered to pay $280,000 each in restitution to the children. And when Judge Mary Claire Akers handed down the sentence.
Now, I don't know how long these children were in that foster care, but I do know there's 5 of them, and they granted $280,000 for each. I think that's rather fucking cheap, considering you can make money out of thin air. Not only is it cheap, but it does nothing, not one bit of good, if there is no education in it for people outside of the children. I'm sure the children learned a lot like I did. And I'm sure those children will grow up looking at the world totally different than most people. And that's the problem. Most people remain idiots to this kind of thing going on right in front of them. The neighbors. Your very neighbors. The people you play up to as being community leaders. Are they really community leaders if they can't even lead their own children? What about those children that grew up in those broken homes and they might have learned something, but they still get caught up in the manualistic stuff and become those community leaders? We need to do better in every aspect. And when that scripture says ye are gods, like I said at the beginning of the video, literally you are the gods to those children before they learn the concept of God. You are literally their hero, the only one in their life that they look up to. Why is that? It's because they depend on it, and we fail that dependency.
Came with scathing remarks as she blasted Whitefeather and Lance for their treatment of the children and their inability to take responsibility. Yes, and Anna Saunders, she joins us live now. And Anna, I mean, you were in that courtroom. What was it like when she handed down that sentence?
Well, Peyton, Gina, scathing is the right word for it. And it wasn't just Judge Akers who made her feelings known. The children victims in this case were there and faced Whitefeather and Lance. Once again, the oldest teen girl looked at Whitefeather and said, I want you to know that you are a monster.
You brought these children to West Virginia, a place that I know is almost heaven, and you put them in hell. This court will now put you in yours. And may God have mercy on your souls, because this court will not. Please stand.
After presiding over 3 weeks of their trial, Judge Mary Claire Akers did not hold back when she had her chance to address Jeannie Whitefeather and Donald Lance before handing down the maximum sentence possible on all of their 31 counts. But before she did that, the kids in this case, the 4 victims and even the 5th child who was considered the favorite, all gave impact statements, both spoken and by letter.
And while they don't bear physical scars, it is exactly right what said and the state said, that they will bear the psychological scars of what was done to them by you, Jeannie Whitefeather.
And that's why this pulls at my heartstrings so much, because that physical scar isn't there. I do have the physical scars, but to me, that's not there. I don't pay attention to them anymore. The psychological scar is why I behave the way I do today. It's why I'm so vehement and speak out so much about this. The insanity of people treating each other like pure animals. We're better than that.
And you, Democrats, for the rest of their lives.
The children who we did not film all detailed the years of abuse and labor and what impact it has had on them today, both psychologically and emotionally. The oldest teen girl even asked the judge if Whitefeather and Lance could be forced to stand with their hands on their heads throughout the hearing, similar to how Whitefeather and Lance would have the kids stand all day when they lived in Sissonville. The judge denied that.
See, they're standing there and they're supposed to stand there with their hands on their heads all day. Nothing to do, but just imposed an imposition to position them in a certain way. This is what instills fear in people, and this is the psychological scar, that fear. When we listen to the rest of this video, you'll hear these kids say that. They're afraid of people because they now know the power of other people and the system that will allow them to get away with it for years. And then say, here's $280,000. What about those psychological scars? What are you going to do about those? What are you going to do about the children that grow up in the broken families and those psychological scars aren't paid attention to and they go on to destroy other families? And it's gross, disgusting, despicable, inhumane.
Request, noting the irony that it would be considered cruel and unusual for her to ask the defendants to do that in court, even though it was done to the kids in their home. Judge Akers instead opted to...
It would be cruel to dish out eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. I find that part despicable. Eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth sounds to me like these people should stand there with their hands on their heads all day. That seems fair to me. Or am I the one that's psychologically off?
To keep the pictures of them up as they spoke.
They all said today that they're still afraid of what will happen to them if they upset someone.
The kids all talked about how their lives are better now, but they will never be the same. At one point, the teen girl looked at Whitefeather and said, "You are the actual definition of a monster," and said that they were not just physically abused, but full out tortured. When given the chance to address the court, typically a time for apologies, Lance only said that he loved the children. Whitefeather said that she made mistakes, but never did anything to intentionally hurt them.
Never did anything to intentionally hurt them. Really? Josh Jonio says, "Feed the system. Mental anguish is job security." That's part of the control mechanism. When you fall victim to believing the false patriarch and the authority delegated through that system, and you talk to somebody across the counter and they assert that they have authority over you, damn well better do what they say. Otherwise, their feelers are going to get on the phone and tell somebody else about their feelers so that they can get their feelers involved and come do their job and take you away. They do not reimburse you for the human experimentation. What do you think statistics is all about? And remember, when you take that word apart and you see it says statist, IC, statistic, statist, IC. That's exactly how I see it. I see it as a bunch of statists following a bunch of manualizations of numbers. That's not spirituality. Discog says some things we did not realize were abuse because that's all we knew at the time. That's what I was talking about. What about the guy that grows up in a broken family, doesn't know any better, doesn't learn the physical side of the abuse, and continues on? Those that hurt people. Isn't that what they say? I didn't grow up like that, thank God. Like I said, I came from an abusive family, but when I raised my daughter, I didn't physically abuse her in any way. I did what my adoptive parents did, which I thought was psychologically a good foundation. They made me sit down and write sentences, write essays about my behavior. So anyway, let's finish up with this one.
Instead of apologizing today, because you never have said you're sorry, even though Ms. Whitefeather, you say you made some mistakes, you're not sorry for them. And Mr. Lance, I didn't hear you apologize either when you had the opportunity. But what you did do was put on one of the most reprehensible, narcissistic defenses that I have ever seen in my years of trial work.
Defense attorney Mark Plants, who represents Whitefeather, said throughout the trial and even now she still denies any criminal responsibility.
And what bothers me is the attorney that sits on that council and pushes these kind of defenses, doing everything they can to try to make these people seem not guilty. When I think effectively, if you're in it for the best interest of the children, like you state, then why are you acting in the best interest of the client to such an extreme to try to destroy the best interest of the child? This is one reason I don't give one flying fuck about anybody's attorney. If you hire an attorney, you've already proved yourself incompetent of the truth of God. That is who I seek in my counsel. It says, trust no man. Why would I trust some other man to make a representation in one of those courts on my behalf? When this is the kind of shit they do. Granted, these people deserve the best counsel. But again, in my opinion, the best counsel would say, well, let's be real about this. You are guilty. So let's make it as minimal as to the sentencing and conviction as possible by owning up to it and letting these people know you're ready right here and now to take the first step to change of being a broken person, a broken people, yourself, admitting you are the one that's broken. Where's that accountability? I don't see it.
My client's side of the story hasn't changed. It really has been that they did the best they could under the circumstances and they didn't intentionally harm anybody. So I'm not surprised that they spoke their hearts, even though a lot of people disagree with it. That's their story, and that's what they told.
The children also thanked everyone who got
Yeah, that's their story and that's what they told. But everybody in the world knows better. And you sat there and let them try to play that story. You're just as incompetent and broken as they are if you don't accept the accountability that every adult has to the children. No matter whose child it is. And I've said many times, my mom is your mom. My dad is your dad. Your mom and dad are my mom and dad. Your children are my children. Your children or my children are your children. I have an expectation that you as an adult will always look out for the best interest of any child. And like I said, possible open panel. If anybody does want to come up, just let me know to drop the link and I'll drop it. But like I said, this is one of my passions. This is one of those things that upsets me to the core. So if you want to come up, feel free. Just let me know.
them out of their situation. The neighbors, the deputies, the prosecutors, and now the judge. Judge Akers, in her remarks, also commending the Sissonville neighbors who repeatedly reported Whitefeather and Lands in Sissonville for months before their arrests. She called that the one good thing in this case.
But the good in this is the people that took action here in the state of West Virginia.
That's my call out. But see, people have a problem with that. People have a problem getting to know their neighbors and coming together. I remember when I was a kid, we used to have what they called block parties, where you could literally call the mayor up, say, hey, we're organizing a block party. It's going to consist of these blocks. And the city would actually come out and, through that permit, block off the streets. And we would have 4 blocks all blocked off, and everybody in that little tiny neighborhood would get together. We'd have barbecue. Everybody was drinking out and open. Why don't people do that anymore? I mean, that was a mere 40 years ago. Things are changing quick, and you better fucking wake up to it.
The good in this is that now these children are West Virginia's children and not your children.
Now, both Whitefeather
And I want that statement to ride with you. I want that statement to ride with you. These children are now the state's children. Really. That's the way they look at it from the day you're born, with all of that documentation. You are, in a legal concept, considered a ward of the state. This is because of those Title IV-D contracts through Social Security. That's in the Social Security Act. So you're not really working for the state. You're not really associated with the state except through that paperwork, because the state somehow, through a private hospital, provided you some kind of services. Is that qualifying for a lifelong contract? No. So everything's just an implication. And until you wake up to that and realize your own reality and your own spirituality and learn how to make your yay, you will never be able to teach the children that. You will dogmatically keep indoctrinating them just like you were indoctrinated to be a statistic. Oh, a statist, I see. Josh Jonio says in REM, they aren't even seeing any of the in personam. Right. In REM at the state level is the thing. The thing. What's a thing? Well, that's described by nouns, persons, places, and things. And the thing is attached to a name, which is a person, and a place where the event occurred. In personam is federal jurisdiction, where they deal with the person that was created through residency of the state, but has an automatic dual citizenship of a United States citizen under the 14th Amendment to say you have equal rights. That's all it is. It's paperwork. Goes on to say, did the parents did the parents work out a plan before they exploited the public trust by the bar eugenics? It is a big experimentation. Like I said, it's a matter of statistics. They're keeping track. They're keeping a record of the numbers, no matter what the qualifying noun is. So let's get on to the next one. Another case. Report, Oxford Center owner took pictures of child on fire. Now, the Oxford Center is a hyperbaric chamber center. They have hyperbaric chambers for people that have certain illnesses, and they put them in these chambers. Well, they had a child that they put in one of these chambers, and it went wrong. And instead of doing what was morally and ethically correct and proper, and actually stepping forward and doing something in an emergency situation, calling for emergency actions, the owner instead stood back and took pictures. These are the people that you hand your children over because to you it's so convenient. Is it so convenient for the children? Where is their hero? Where is their God? As you try to bring them up in a God, or in a world where there's supposedly some kind of God. That's basically what I'm saying, Rocky. I don't have any trust in this system whatsoever. It was fomented by weak men. Rocky says CPS, or Child Protective Services, are the biggest kidnappers in child trafficking. I tend to agree with it because, like I said, I know about the Social Security Act, the Title IV-D contracts, foster care and adoption system, and these laws are literally for nothing but foster care and adoptive parents when it comes to the Child Protective Services. So if you're the biological parent of that child, it has no authority. They have no authority against the objection of either parent. Well, there's a bad term to use, parent. I am the biological daddy of my offspring, my heir apparent. That's where a parent comes from, heir apparent. That's the kind of apparent I am. So let's get into the next one.
Well, also tonight, disturbing developments in that deadly hyperbaric chamber explosion in Troy, which killed a 5-year-old boy. Now, according to documents, the owner of the facility took pictures of the child while he was on fire.
Awful. And that was followed.
And this is from Fox 2 Detroit 12 days ago. So don't let any of this seem like it's old history. This still goes on today, every day.
By some heinous texts. And Fox 2's Jessica Dupnack is joining us live in studio with more on this. And it's just really troubling all the way around, Jessica.
And we both know that this scene was jarring for even the most seasoned first responders who responded back in January when this happened. That new digital evidence, text messages that came out in court from the owner, Tamala Peterson, seemingly mocking that little boy, questioning why he didn't do anything to put out the fire that engulfed him.
Arrests on Monday were a really big first step.
The owner of the Oxford Center, Tamala Peterson, and 3 employees arrested and charged this week. Peterson, now facing murder and manslaughter, gave Troy police a literal run for their money when they moved in for an arrest.
She did run, which was our officers found a little odd.
She did run, which our officers found a little odd. I find it heinous. Like I said, instead of standing up and doing something about the emergency and trying to help the child, you stood back and took pictures, and when the police showed up, you ran? That's heinous. So egregious. And this is a woman. Your sole purpose in life is to bear children. And somehow you seem to get off on watching children die before your eyes. That is sick. And you call me the one that's psychologically disturbed.
They caught her a couple doors out and then seized her electronics, computer, and cell phone. She allegedly tried to wipe clean after 5-year-old Thomas Cooper died when the hyperbaric chamber he was in caught fire and exploded. In text messages that came out in court, Peterson seemingly mocked the helpless child, sending photos of him burning from security footage, saying, quote, "If my leg was on fire, I would at least try to hit it and put it out." He just laid there and did nothing.
The loss.
I got to take a minute and reload a bowl. So you guys ruminate on that. Let me put it back to the quote. If my leg was on fire, I would at least try to hit it and put it out. You're a fucking adult. Of course, that's obvious. But you're looking at a little child that has no experience. And in his eyes, you're the only adult around. You're his hero, and you failed him. You took upon that duty in a contract, a private contract, to provide hyperbaric chamber for the child so he could live. And that's the last thing you're interested in. I don't know about you guys, but it's sick. And it disturbs me greatly that they call me the one that's psychologically not balanced.
Nothing.
The loss of a child is one of the most horrific things that any family can go through.
That same forensic dump of her cell phone showed another string of messages where Peterson seems to want to cash in on the hyperbaric treatments. Someone asked her about treatments for erectile dysfunction, and she replied, quote, "Whatever gets bodies in those chambers, LOL."
It's important to be very careful.
Whatever gets bodies. Whatever gets bodies into those chambers. You better start listening to people and how they speak. They will tell you their intent. But of course, you'll have to learn some spirituality for that, wouldn't you?
The treatment that you seek, the money that you spend, and do your research.
2 of those employees, Alita Moffitt and Gary Markin, bonded out already. The theory of prosecution.
No way. No way.
And Gary Markin bonded out already.
Very careful in the treatment that you seek, the money that important to be very careful in the treatment that you seek, the money that you spend, and do your research. Important to be very careful in the treatment that you seek, the money that you spend, and do your research. Important to be very careful in the treatment that you seek, the money that you spend, and do your research.
2 of those employees, Alita Moffitt and Gary Markin.
Don't believe me. Don't believe your neighbor. Don't believe your government. And don't believe your mother, for crying out loud. Do your research so you know. And so when I go through this immunotherapy up here at the cancer clinic, cancer-free now, of course, thank God, I let these people know that I do my research, and that when they tried telling me when they first found out I had cancer that they wanted to do radiation and chemo, I said no. I already done my research, and I know that whether you got to send me to Iowa City or someplace else, my medical directive as I order will be immunotherapy, so long as my body can take that. Lo and behold, when they did the tests, sure enough, I could get immunotherapy rather than chemo or radiation. And along with that, I let them know that I also did my research on their authority in these medical contracts, and I signed a sales agreement. I'm the other contracting party, not the state. So we both have to follow regulations. And according to the regulations, you're the one that carries the liability of public service, which is a public trust, and I'm the benefactor. My yay is my yay.
Bonded out already. The theory of prosecutors is the crew fudged records on the machines to avoid spending on mandated maintenance, and a lack of ground wires caused the spark that led to the deadly explosion.
Trying to get by cheap again, huh? See, life is cheap, folks, when it's somebody else's. It's $280,000 when it's somebody else's life. It's a fucking maintenance upgrade when it's somebody else's life. Sick.
Defendants involved should have known that there, was a chance, a reasonable chance that we would see this kind of outcome.
So Tamala Peterson ruled a flight risk in this situation, given a $2 million bond. She ran from police, and also, Taryn, you reported earlier this week she withdrew some currency.
Well, she had some Iraqi currency, a Chinese visa. Her husband is a forensic accountant. There was fears that because this was a cash business, that there was stashing cash everywhere, and that's another reason why. But all of this was just so troubling. Anyway, unimaginable for a parent to deal with this, but yet.
So when you start digging into the backgrounds like these people did, finding out they got all kinds of cash accounts and Chinese visas and stuff like that, yeah, you start wondering, she was headed to China, huh? Disgusting.
Now, when even more information, and you hear about these text messages and how purposeful, allegedly, this all was, it just really, you can't wrap your mind around it.
Yeah, the tone of those text messages, and as of tonight, still in.
You can't wrap your mind. It's been happening for a long time. Why don't you start wrapping your mind around it? My apologies if I hurt your ears. This is disgusting stuff, and this is why I tell you people, when you start watching these videos and stuff, make sure you get your fill and leave and go do something. It can change you inside. Now, the next one I have is a breaking news from Fort Worth, Dallas. 5 days ago, Fox 4, Dallas, Fort Worth. Millsap ISD superintendent, 2 teachers arrested after viral video showing autistic boys' alleged abuse. And again, it only takes one mouth. But here in a system that has to protect itself, that one mouth is covered up by those that are above them. So when somebody does speak out, it will still get covered up. I hope you people are paying attention. These are the kind of people you send your children out to deal with every day, no matter how old they are. And I urge you to help them develop their spirituality so they can see this for themselves. so that they know when they're up against the abuse. They themselves have a voice.
Investigation into student mistreatment at a Parker County elementary school. 3 educators have now been arrested. The investigation stems from this video showing a teacher and teacher's aide taunting and mistreating a 10-year-old boy inside a classroom. The investigation revealed an alleged pattern of abuse against multiple.
I want you to pay attention to this boy here. This is a pattern of practice, and you can tell by body language. Watch. Watch as this boy walks up to her. She raises what's in her hand, looks like a little scoop of some sort. She raises it, and he automatically flinches. Don't tell me this is a one-off. This is a pattern of practice, and it's disgusting.
Inside a classroom. The investigation revealed an alleged pattern of abuse against multiple special needs children.
See, he flinched. He knew she was going to hit him with it. And tell me I'm the one that's psychologically off.
And the fallout from this case just netted a 3rd arrest late tonight.
So now she's hit him twice with it. And now he's standing back and still flinching. Does she also throw it at him?
Fox 4's David Santandri live at the Parker County Sheriff's Office with the breaking details. David.
Yeah, Clarice, we can now confirm that the Millsap ISD superintendent has also been charged for her alleged role in this ongoing investigation about these child abuse, again, allegations that we've been reporting on for just over a week now. It was at 9 o'clock just an hour ago. We reported that.
And I want to say greetings to everybody in chat. I really appreciate your support. We have Rocky, Josh Junio, Dr. D. Head, Bear Jew, Austin Murphy. We had Caucasian in here, Discog, Sammy, Stinky. Appreciate everybody. Keep making the comments. Hit that like, share, and subscribe. And let me know if you want to join the panel. I will drop the panel link if you have an interest. But just know that this is one of my passions, so tread lightly.
That the 2 educators charged related to the child abuse educations we've been reporting on were arrested today. State Representative Mike Alcott then put me in contact with Parker County Sheriff, and Sheriff Russ Authier confirms to me that Millsap ISD Superintendent Mary Edie Martin has also been charged. That is for failure to report intent to conceal. That's a state jail felony. We do not yet have
state jail felony, because she is known as a head of agency, which is who we're supposed to speak to. And when a head of agency blatantly violates the law, that is a felony. That is a federal charge. It's disgusting. And again, I want to remind you people, these are women, people that bear children themselves. Disgusting.
have the arrest warrant for her, so few details at this point in time. However, we do have the arrest warrants for the 2 additional educators who were charged today, and that reveals.
And that is not to dismiss any men either. Just so you gentlemen get it. I assume, and can only assume by the pattern of practice I've seen my entire life, that men would do the exact same goddamned thing. NPC in the house, salute! Understand, NPC, I'm not bashing you at all. NPC happens to be a teacher, as I understand it. But I also understand that NPC uses his mind. Been on his panel. Go check him out. Go give him some subs. Go give him some likes. Subscribe and get some information from reality from another man that knows how to treat the children and knows that this world is dependent on how he treats the children. At least that's what I get from you, brother. Appreciate it.
That they were placed under criminal investigation. We knew that. And then 3 of their peers interviewed with Parker County Sheriff's detectives talking about more alleged abuse and more kids.
No way. No way. Not with the pattern of practice found out on one child. You see why you should do your research, folks? Because it's not just one child. It's children everywhere. At every second of the day. And these are children that are looking for heroes and looking for gods before their comprehension of heroes and gods. You saw the little Paul Jr. Segment here at the beginning of the video. That's why I do that. There's a guy named Philip Zimbardo. He's the one that did the Stanford Prison Project. And he was so turned by his own project that he now runs what's called the Heroic Imagination Project. And I urge everybody to do some research on the Heroic Imagination Project by Philip Zimbardo and see how you yourself can be that hero for the children by implementing the ethics and morals in your own communities. That's all it takes. See, a lot of people talk about this thing, faith is dead without works. I urge you to read again the parable of the talents, where the principle is that you have a certain number of talents and you're supposed to go out and share those talents. What's it mean to share those talents? It means to teach your talents to others. And they too, in equal exchange, will teach you their talents. See, that's the true benefit. My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. Therefore, the true benefit of life, to have life and live and prosper, is to have that knowledge and keep it. The true work is teaching. What do you think Jesus did? Do you think Jesus taught those people how to go out and cornrow their hair? Do you think he taught them how to plant corn in rows? Do you think he went out and taught them how to fish? No. He was telling the fishermen themselves that already knew how to fish to try new ways. Why are we set up in the old ways and still insisting that the old ways are the ways to do it? Because that's the way my daddy did it.
Video Fox 4 first broadcasted last week shows a Millsap Elementary School educator.
All good, brother. NPC the Game says, thank you so much for blessing my channel, Mr. Little, yesterday. You're a real one, brother. You are too. Go check him out, NPC the Game. Show him some love.
Slapping toward an autistic boy. Moments later, another educator yells at him.
Look at this fat bitch sitting back in her chair with her leg up and not doing anything but yelling. Disgusting. You should get up and walk around that room and lose some of that weight. Excuse my offensiveness there, but I'm a little riled. According to the abilities of each man, one servant received 5 talents, the second had received 2, and the third received only 1. And when you go out and share those talents, you come back with more. But when you bury that talent and you don't express it, then you do nothing. See, that's your freedom of expression. See, the freedom of expression is your right of locomotion. Because when you put one foot down, you impress a footprint by pressing it into the earth. And when you pick that foot up and you move it another step, that is your freedom of expression in the physical form. Your freedom of expression in the tangible or the intangible form is through a tangible form of communication. Your words. Make them count. That is your accountability, and you must first coin your words or purse your lips.
before repeatedly hitting him with a toy, then throwing the toy at the 10-year-old.
Chewing on things.
The incident happened in February. Alex Cornelius is the child.
And it seems little. You really would think it's little, this incident here. But remember back at the first of the video, and it didn't actually show the woman hitting. And this is why she used the excuse that, oh, she was just feigning. But there's no way that arm went the way it did and didn't hit that child. And even if it didn't, look at the way the child responds. That's psychological abuse. Even if you don't physically touch him, you are psychologically affecting him and putting him in a state of fear. Sickening.
In the video.
I don't understand why anybody would want to do this to any child, let alone an autistic child or a special needs child.
Millsap ISD says the educators involved are no longer employed by the district. Now, Fox 4 obtained arrest warrants for both educators regarding alleged crimes against Alex and 2 additional students.
You got to have a really kind heart to be a special education teacher, and as we've all seen, some people just don't have it.
According to the
And so I can only imagine that the only reason they found out about the other 2 children was internally through viewing the videos on the prosecution side, where the prosecution demanded discovery and pulled all the videos of these teachers so they could possibly find these other students that they were abusing. So it wasn't anybody's kind heartstrings that came up. It was somebody diligently doing their job as a prosecutor under a contract again. And only because it reached the level that it did that it hit their desk. It wasn't because she actually had any kind of concern. Because she's one of those attorneys that if she actually did have concern, this fucking problem would have been solved long time ago.
Warrants. Teacher Jennifer Dale admitted swinging at Alex in the video, but claimed it was done playfully. One of her fellow educators recorded the video. Swinging at Alex in the video, but claimed it was done playfully. One of her fellow educators recorded the video. That educator and 2 others gave investigators sworn statements of ongoing alleged abuse. Dale is charged with official oppression for intentionally subjecting.
See, you just can't see or physically touch the kid because it's just out of camera. It's too bad.
3 known child victims to mocking, mistreating, and tormenting. Paraprofessional Paxton Bean, seen in the video, is also charged with official oppression and has a felony charge of injury to a disabled child with intention. An arrest.
Absolutely, I agree with that. With intention. Again, the pattern of practice showing that she intended to do it. She's done it many times before. That is a pattern of practice developing that standard of intent. Absolutely agree. Dr. D-Head says, no, it's not little. Personal conduct is everything, particularly body language, especially in regards to kids with special needs. And that's the thing. A lot of people don't understand body language. They think we need this verbal and literal communication, and that's not so. I've said many times, children are the most intuitive when they're children, and we as adults don't pay attention to that. That's our problem. If we could sit back, like the scripture says, and go back to being a child ourselves and just start listening to their intuition, we might learn things that we've already missed. We've got to quit this Dunning-Kruger narcissistic, I know better because I'm the adult thing. You would be surprised at what children can bring to the table. Yeah, she'll be popular with the girls in county jail. Yeah, a lot of them don't like child abusers. But I've got a question too. You know, how many of those women in there Again, it's not just men when it comes to being criminals. And that kind of plays in part with that thing about intent and your spirituality. I want to remind everybody, hit that like, share, and subscribe button. There is a PayPal link down there for anybody who wants to share some love. And I will drop the panel link if anybody's interested in coming up and discussing this.
Arrest warrant claims Bean.
I'm going to be here for a while. So I've got 3 more videos. One of them is, what is it? It's a half hour long that I want to look at about a woman that held her son captive for 20 years. Strange situation in case you haven't heard it. And this is on the coming in of April, which is Child Abuse Month, Child Abuse Prevention Month. March 26th, April 1st, beginning April 1st to April 30th. Yeah, April 30th. Child Abuse Prevention Month.
Took an unnamed special needs child into a calm down room on January 16th. The child returned with a bloody nose. Bean told other educators the child had run into a wall. In a forensic interview, however, the child said Bean punched him.
I never expected any of this.
As for Cornelius's son, arrest warrants claim abuse was common. Alex regularly subjected to extensive timeouts, inappropriate comments about his private
was common. It was common. Again, that pattern of practice. And it wasn't just common that the woman slapped him upside the head or the other gal threw a toy at him. But as we listen on.
Parts and taunting. On one occasion, of timeouts. Inappropriate regularly subjected to extensive timeouts. Inappropriate comments about his private parts and taunting. On one regularly subjected to extensive timeouts. Inappropriate comments about his private parts and taunting. Regularly subjected to extensive timeouts. Inappropriate comments about his private parts and taunting.
Now, why are teachers, again, this is one of those sick psychological games that are played. Why are teachers mentioning a child's private parts? Why are teachers talking to children about their private parts? Isn't that mom and dad's job? I urge you parents to understand what's going on here, and you're the ones doing it. When I titled this Child Abuse, whose fault is it? It's yours. It's not the damn teacher's fault. Get that in your head. You're the one that let your child go there without doing your research and knowing. Rocky Shepherd says homeschool your children. Absolutely. I agree fully. Like I said earlier, Rocky, these children look up to us as their heroes, their gods, and we damn well better do that. We did the same thing when we were growing up. We looked up to our parents as our heroes and our gods.
On one occasion, taunting until he covered his ears and began to rock back and forth, showing his anxiety.
We want to make sure that these teachers are never teaching again.
Alex's family believes had they not shared his story, criminal charges may have never happened.
I'm very grateful that the Parker County Sheriff's Department worked so quickly on it.
But we did not expect it to be this fast.
So where do we go from here? Obviously, this criminal investigation is ongoing. There's a court process that needs to play out. But in the meantime, there is a special called Board of Education meeting tomorrow with Millsap ISD at 8:30 in the morning. This has been in the works for several days.
See, and this is one of those things, like I said earlier, when it comes to the prosecution and knowing that this kind of stuff happens and it should have been stopped a long time ago, one of the things that we should have most certainly is, of course, that video But the problem is we don't have anybody going through and skimming through the videos to see if there's any events happening that should be red flagged. See, AI doesn't do that. That's something people have to do. And nobody wants to sit down and skim through videos just to see if somebody's possibly abusing children. There's so many of them to look through, and it's so many children. Absolutely. Homeschool your children then. Cuts down on all that. It helps sustain the state's budget and yours.
So even before these criminal charges were made, on the agenda for tomorrow's special board meeting, it says it will deliberate matters related to personnel, including the superintendent, the elementary school principal, and the assistant principal. There's also an agenda item that says, quote, consider superintendent separation agreement. Again, that meeting tomorrow morning.
So yeah, they're considering getting rid of the superintendent. I think it's highly likely, considering she's got felony charges because she violated state laws, right? So let's take a look at the next one. And again, I want to remind everybody, please hit that like, share, and subscribe button. There's a PayPal link down below for anybody who wants to share some love. And I will drop the panel link if anybody wants to come up. In the meantime, I've got to take a short break. So I'm going to run this. Okay, thank you, everybody. Again, appreciate everybody's support. And the next one is on the MILSAP ISD board meeting Friday morning, where the community members attended that meeting on the heels of these previous accusations of that autistic child being abused.
Now to a developing story out of Parker County and the MILSAP ISD. We have new details this morning involving 2 elementary school teachers and a superintendent who were arrested on charges relating to the alleged abuse of 3 elementary age students. Right now, there's a packed house at district headquarters where dozens of parents are hoping for the removal of the superintendent. Our Lacey Beasley has been in MILSAP all morning. And Lacey, I understand you just got out of the meeting. Tell us, what's the latest on this?
Hey, Karen, lots of parents, family, and friends took to the podium defending these 3 students who also have special needs. Now, we're about to show you that cell phone video that shows the alleged abuse of 10-year-old Alex Cornelius, who also has autism and is nonverbal. And for the first time, we're hearing from the woman who took this video, and she says after she reported it to the superintendent, Dr. Edie Martin, she was told to keep quiet.
Instead of taking immediate appropriate action, Dr. Martin assured me that everything would be handled correctly. Instead of acting in the best interest of the students and reporting to the proper authorities, Dr. Martin hired an external investigator. I, along with other witnesses, were asked to sign a document stating we could not speak about the case. We were silenced. This is not what accountability.
Okay. See the importance that document she signed created a contract. Okay. Understand the basic, simple contract. When they sign, when When they create a document and say you can't say anything about this and you sign it, that's your fault. I said, nope, I'm never going to sign that. I'm running my motherfucking mouth. I'm not going to do that to begin with. I wouldn't even have stooped so low as this woman did. I consider that low. I am appreciative that she stood up and took the photos and stuff, and she's doing what she is now, because that's the crux of this whole situation. But I'd have never signed that document. That's for damn sure.
Ability looks like.
Now, Jamie Riggs goes on to say she showed this video to Dr. Martin on February 19th, one day after it happened. It wasn't until weeks later that parents say they found out. This video shows teacher Jennifer Dale raising her arm to seemingly hit 10-year-old Alex. According to the arrest warrants obtained from the Parker County Sheriff's, Dale says she did this, quote, playfully. Investigators say Dale is charged with official oppression, meaning she, quote, intentionally mocked, mistreated, and tormented the 3 victims. Another video shows paraprofessional Paxton Dean throwing a toy at Alex. Dean has also been charged with official oppression and injury to a child with intentional bodily injury. Superintendent Mary Edie Martin was also arrested for failure to report, intent to conceal regarding abuse allegations. I talked to Alex.
See, I don't know about you guys, but most of the time when I see this stuff, I don't see the abuse and bullying coming from other children. I see it coming from the teachers themselves. Now, in regular school, yeah, that might be different. I went through regular school, and it was, yeah, there was a lot of bullying. I could see that. But in all these videos that I've seen with autistic children, I don't see it's the autistic children abusing other children. I see it the teachers abusing the children. Let me know otherwise if you think otherwise. But that's what I see.
Alex's family right before the meeting, and they say watching those videos of abuse was gut-wrenching. Now, right now, the board is in executive session and has not returned yet. They are talking about the future of Superintendent Dr. Martin, as well as the principal and assistant principals of Millsap Elementary who are currently on administrative leave. I also talked to the grandfather right before this meeting, and he tells me to tell the audience and tell the public that he's thankful for the community that has come up to support his family. Karen?
Yeah, finally the community came up to support. But that was because it took so long. What happened?
I love beef sticks.
What happened that it took so long? I mean, again, there are things that we can do to prevent this. And moms and dads, that part lies on your shoulders. When you start handing your children over to other adults and those adults abuse them, it's because you allowed it first. You didn't do your research and know these people well enough. Didn't know their history. If I'm going to hand my child over, I want to know that videos have been recorded of their activities throughout the day, and that reviews can be made of them publicly. I mean, they are operating in a public forums. Therefore, those would be parts of the public record, right? That's why they have those videos. So I would request a review of videos so I could see, you know, at least a certain timeline in recent history that would show me that they're conducting themselves by body language accordingly, as well as by their other adult behaviors. I would be able to discern for myself whether I would trust that being with my child, heir apparent. So this next one, it says, man escapes alleged 20 years of captivity using hand sanitizer and printer paper. This is from 12 days ago. Excuse me, got the hiccups. 12 days ago. It's from CNN News. And this is just a 9-minute video. The same story as the next one we're going to view, which is a half hour long. It's got some more details that we're going to look at, but this is going to give us a basic rundown of what's going on with the man captivity for 20 years by his own mom. It happens to be stepmom, but still, she's got 2 other biological children in the home. And dad was there evidently too. Dad ended up in a wheelchair and then passed away, and mom and the other adult children's, despite the fact that dad was gone and all authority from him was gone, carried on his authority and said, well, in our own favor, we're just going to keep him locked up anyway. How convenient. How does this kind of broken families spread like that. It's because we don't have very many good parents left. We don't have very many good moms and dads left. That's the sad part. My own mom, adoptive mom, my real mom didn't really give a shit about me. Disassociated. My dad was alcoholic. So when dad couldn't maintain the marriage and got divorced, mom didn't want us, so she gave us up for adoption. I'm glad I didn't turn out like this.
Disturbing discovery last month while responding to a house fire. At the property, they found a middle-aged woman and her 32-year-old stepson who claimed he'd been kept secret his entire life and revealed startling allegations of abuse. CNN's Gene Casares has the story.
33 years of law enforcement, this is the worst treatment of humanity that I've ever witnessed.
The worst treatment of humanity I've ever witnessed. 30-some years in law enforcement. Dr. D-Head says Jonathan Taylor got to long live his legacy. There you go, brother. Dr. D-Head again says Charlotte Thomas Iserby, long live the legacy. There you go, brother. Shout out.
When authorities were called to a home on fire, they were looking for anyone who may be trapped inside.
Officers and fire investigators quickly realized that there was a room in the house that appeared to have locks on it from the exterior portion of the house.
A 32-year-old man was locked inside that room.
32-year-old man locked up for 20 years. That means they locked this kid up when he was 12 years old. Even though it's a 32-year-old man, understand this is child abuse. This is child trafficking. This is kidnapping. All kinds of things. It's intent to kill. Denying a man his very own humanity and the necessities of life. That's the torture part. But it comes with intent to kill, in my opinion.
Began to speak to the male victim, who disclosed that he was being held captive in the house for an extended period of time.
The man was treated for smoke inhalation, and police say he admitted to setting the fire to gain his freedom. He also told them he'd been held captive for more than 20 years by his stepmother since he was about 11 years old. He said he was only fed 2 sandwiches and 2 cups of water a day. Authorities say he was held in an 8 by 9 foot storage room with no heat or air conditioning, and he suffered serious physical consequences. According to a police affidavit, the 32-year-old is 5 feet 9 inches tall and just 68.7.
It is
You guys hear that?
Of physical therapy.
And just 68.7 pounds. 68.7 pounds. And just 68.7 pounds.
There's a lot of...
I'm trying to imagine that. I'm trying to imagine that as a 5'7" man that currently weighs 135 pounds. And when I was at my worst, like I said, I was diagnosed with lung cancer, and I was down to 105 pounds. I was stick and bone. I can't imagine 68.7 pounds. And that's a 32-year-old man, 5'9", average height and build. He should weigh about 168 pounds, 175, somewhere in there, I think.
Of physical therapy that he'll have to go through. There's a lot of healing that he'll have to go through.
According to law enforcement, authorities went to the home twice in April of 2000.
See, we think about the psychological abuse, but we oftentimes think that the physical abuse isn't quite so bad. But when you put this picture together with 68.7 pounds, 20 years, being locked up and not being able to associate with anybody, can you put yourself in that guy's shoes? I can't. I don't understand 68.7 pounds. That physical abuse has a deep psychological effect on me. Why doesn't it have that same effect on others? That's my issue. Yet I'm the one that's supposedly psychologically off. I don't see that either. Fuck you.
2004. The first visit was a welfare check requested by the Department of Children and Families.
Officers went to the house. The house was clean. It was lived in. They spoke to the victim at that point in time, and there were no cause for any alarm.
Later that month, the family attempted to file harassment charges because the school district continued reporting the family to DCF. The affidavit.
The school district continued reporting the family. But when it came to the sister, excuse me, when it came to the sister or family member or whoever that came to visit one time and reported, there was no follow-up. There was no follow-up. And it kind of makes me wonder, the family member that reported them for abuse, did they really have a concern if there was no follow-up? And I ask this because in my particular situation, like I said, I was brought up in foster care for a number of years and then finally adopted. But I had 4 brothers and sisters.
Later that month, the family attempted to file harassment charges because the school district continued reporting the family to DCF.
And so when that family member, who supposedly had the best interest of the child at their mind or in their heart or whatever, and didn't do follow-up. I had 4 brothers and sisters. My dad had 13 brothers and sisters. My mom had like 10 or 11, I think. In families that are so large, why would you have a foster care system? Why would you use a foster care system? Wouldn't you think that in all of those brothers and sisters and all those familial members, wouldn't you think someone or some of them, being there were 5 of us, I wouldn't expect maybe one family to take on all 5, but maybe 5 brothers or 5 sisters or a combination thereof take in all 5 of them so they keep them in the family? Why is it all of these families lose their spirituality to a manuality? Dr. Diaz says, El Perro, will you elaborate on meaning of psychologically off? They think I'm the one that's unbalanced. I think when you don't pay attention to it, you let it slide off your back like water off a duck's back, that maybe there's something wrong with you. When you see the guy bullying the other guy, obvious height difference, size difference, one's drunk and the other one's trying to just get by, and the big old drunk bully wants to bully the little guy trying to get through. What do? You go up and poke the drunk in the eye. Decades of constant propaganda encouraging people to abandon their children to the state. No, this is eons. This is eons where it's better to live in the king's palace as a servant to the king than on mom and dad's plantation where you got to sweat like a peasant all day long to make goods and products in contract for the king. False patriarch's been around for a long time. So let's get back to it. Like I said, it's a familial problem, not a state problem. Build your families, make them strong, and the false patriarch can't invade.
The affidavit says after that, his stepmother pulled him out of school.
It's just unfathomable that anyone could treat someone this way.
The alleged victim says he wasn't allowed to use the bathroom and instead had to use bottles and newspaper. His stepmother, Kimberly Sullivan, was arrested on charges of assault, second-degree kidnapping, and first-degree unlawful restraint. Her attorney says the allegations against her are not true.
Again, look at this attorney. And you'll hear the details later on that'll help you fill this in. As this woman stands here and pleads innocent, and the attorney says, yeah, her story is totally true. Nothing this man is saying is true. His characters, I mean, look at him. This is what they use. I mean, look at him. He's not even psychologically developed. I mean, he doesn't take care of himself. Look at him. He doesn't take care of himself.
Absolutely not true. He was not locked in a room. She did not restrain him in any way. She provided food. She provided shelter. She is blown away by these allegations.
She denies everything and says she's blown away.
Jean Casares, CNN.
She provided food in a room. She did not. Absolutely not true. He was not locked in a room. She did not restrain him in any way. She provided food. She provided shelter. She is blown away by these allegations.
Jean.
Absolutely not true. Absolutely not true. Absolutely not true. He was not locked in a room. She did not restrain him in any way. She provided food. She provided shelter. She is blown away by these allegations.
I want to remind everybody, hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And there's a PayPal link down there for anybody who wants to share some love. Always appreciate it. And of course, just ask if you want me to drop the panel link to come join the panel. I have no problem with it. Just know that this is why I do what I do. So tread carefully.
Jean Casares, CNN, New York.
32 years old, just 68 pounds, and 20 years in captivity, allegedly. An emaciated Connecticut man's physical appearance so horrifying and shocking that his uncle told police, quote, he looks like a Holocaust survivor. How did he get to this point? Who knew? And why are we just hearing about this now? Well, the man who officials are calling male victim 1 tells police that the last time he left his family property was when he was 14 or 15 to dispose of yard waste with his dad. He says his dad and stepmom starved him and physically abused him since he was a child. And that things got so bad, he started stealing, eating from the garbage, and drinking toilet water. Then came the alleged confinement, a punishment, he says, for sneaking food. But things got even worse just over 1 year ago when his dad died. His stepmother allegedly became even more restrictive, deadbolting him in an 8x9.
So he's saying it became worse when his stepfather died. So these people are posing that the stepfather is the one that set the rules and they were just following the rules. But then when he died, they were still just following the rules, but enhanced them a little bit, huh? Absolutely not true. Absolutely not true. Absolutely not true. Remember that?
Foot room where he says he would stay for 22 to 24.
This is disgusting. Like I said, this is a woman who bears her own goddamn children. And those own goddamn children that she did in fact bear stood up and did the same fucking shit she did.
4 hours a day. I want you to look at this next photograph carefully. You're looking at the inside of the home where it all allegedly took place. It may be the only glimpse we get into the space where male victim 1 allegedly suffered these abuses. It's also the home he set fire to last month. He says he was done and used printer paper, hand sanitizer, and a stolen lighter to light that fire and finally get authorities' attention. Now his stepmother is facing charges of assault, kidnapping, and cruelty, but she denies any wrongdoing. Her lawyer saying, "My client maintains her innocence and looks forward to clearing her name." For more on this, let's bring in the mayor of Waterbury, Connecticut, where all of this took place, Paul Pernaruski. Mayor, thank you for joining us. I do want to play some of what the police chief had to say today. Listen.
33 years of law enforcement. This is the worst treatment of humanity that I've ever witnessed. It was worse.
I don't know. I didn't listen to this full next video. All I know is it's a breakdown by somebody of law and crime, and so we're going to listen to that. And I'm just giving the preemptive thing that I know of. This one I did watch. They didn't mention anything about that in here. And that's to Bad Barney No Bullet. Says, didn't they say he was taken two times to the hospital during the 20 years? So we'll find out. We'll find out.
Worse than the conditions of a jail cell.
Watch what eggs do to your brain. Your brain is showing signs of dementia.
Mayor, what more are you learning tonight about the conditions of this victim?
I mean, the conditions were just deplorable. As the chief said, it was a small area. He was held in 9 feet by 8 feet. The windows wouldn't open, the door locked from the outside. It was a door.
Right. You know, I thought about that too. Dr. D-Head says, makes me wonder what really happened to the stepfather. See, if the stepfather was wheelchair bound, you know, what then? You know, see, they're the ones that are in control of his diet and his movement and all that, just like the son, right? And I'm telling you, it was 3 adult women. She's got 2 adult children of her own that were all involved in it.
Former room, the ceiling sloped down, so there's issues around that. He was allowed out for about between 2 hours or 15 minutes in that range once a day. Was fed 2 bottles of water and 2 sandwiches a day. That's all he had. He had to rig a makeshift way to drain the urine out of the bottles that he had in the room while he was
back
there.
at you, brother.
It's unfathomable to think of what he went through.
And this is somebody who's 32 years old now. I mean, the arrest warrant in that he alleges that he was held captive in that house since he was 11. But he remembers the abuse going back to when he was just 3 years old. I mean, how were they able to possibly hide this alleged abuse for so many years?
Well, you know, he was withdrawn from school when he was going into 4th grade, when he was about 11 years old. He was homeschooled, and there's really no connection between the city or the state and families that are being homeschooled here in Connecticut. There was a lot of psychological and, other intimidation that went on with him. When people came to the house, he was told to be quiet. They rarely had any visitors. And I think over time, his stepmother was telling him that, if he behaved himself, she would try to let him out more. So she kind of was able to control him that way as well. From the time he was 11, he doesn't remember ever leaving the house.
See, and that's that, having that physical control and that psychological manipulation. So it's both physical and mental abuse. Physically kidnapping and psychologically deranging another being. Not allowing them proper education and proper socialization with other people. I can't imagine the struggle this man's going to have learning to associate with people that do have a spirit, that are full of righteousness and do have a soul to express that spiritualness. I wonder if he's not going to flinch when people make an offer of helping him.
Except for one incident when he was about 12 years old, when he accompanied his father to the dump to dispose of some leaves. But the rest of the time he was locked in that room, except for, about 2 hours a day, sometimes only 15 minutes a day did he get out.
I can't even contemplate this level of cruelty
I know, it's
that
hard
you're
to believe.
describing. It's thinking about, I have elementary school students, children myself, and the idea of all the many steps that must have failed this person. I mean, the victim's former elementary school principal is speaking out, saying that the school notified the Department of Children and Family Services on several occasions. Listen.
We knew it. We reported it. Not a damn thing was done. That's the tragedy of the whole thing. Everyone really was concerned with this child since he was 5 years old. You knew something was wrong. It was grossly wrong. Sorry, we couldn't do more because you went through more than any of us ever will go through in our lives.
So when I mentioned in the earlier videos about the prosecutor and knowing that this stuff goes on and not having a solution for it, not only do they have other implementations, like if the mom and dad are hiding it, the school can interact. They ignored the school. How does this happen? How do these children get so overlooked that this shit can go on for 20 years like this? Not only did the school get involved, the family got involved. CPS got involved in both situations. It still went nowhere. Where is the moral and ethical competence to stand up and follow through in the best interest of the children, regardless of your fucking statist jobs?
Pretty serious, your eyes. Think about that. I mean, in the arrest warrant affidavit, the
Excuse my language.
victim states that child services visited the home twice, and he was told to tell them everything was okay. Mayor, how could something like this be missed?
Yeah. We do know they were called twice. That was the point at which he ended up being.
See, and that's the part that reminds me, as I pull up full screen here and show you this nice little short mustache, that somehow here on American soil, we are slowly turning into Hitler's willing executioners, willing to just do our job because our boss said so. That false patriarch that's got you believing you're better than the next guy because he's your daddy.
Homeschooled. So that's when he withdrew from the system. There was no more connection with him. At one point, shortly after he was homeschooled, we do know that some of his former classmates were concerned because they didn't see him any longer. They called DCF. They contacted the Waterbury Police Department. We sent an officer out to visit the home. He talked to the child, and he came back and reported that everything was okay. And then after that, it just sort of fell through the cracks or fell out of the anyone's notice at that point and continued on. So I do think that we've made some strides in the last 20 years for reporting requirements and things where people would notice these things. And I think anyone who knows or is concerned something's going on ought to feel comfortable in reporting it. It's better to report something and have it turn out not to be true than to allow something like this to go on for 20 years because you're not sure what to do about it.
So true. Just imagine the lives that you could.
These things. And, I think anyone who knows or is concerned something's going on ought to, feel comfortable in reporting it. It's better to report something and have it turn out not to be true than to allow something like this to go on for 20 years because you're environments and things where people would notice these things. And, I think anyone who knows or is concerned something's going on ought to, feel comfortable in reporting it. It's better to report something and have it turn out not to be true than to allow something like this to go on for 20 years because you're not sure what to do about it. People would notice these things. And, I think anyone who knows or is concerned something's going on ought to, feel comfortable in reporting it. It's better to report something and have it turn out not to be true than to allow something like this to go on for 20 years because you're not sure what to do about it.
So true. Just.
And so I support that as it relates to making sure that the facts are true. Don't go around making false statements in hopes that you can help a child because you don't like the person watching the child. Don't go making false accusations that the teacher abused your child. Don't go making false accusations that your estranged father of the child did something to the child or is abusing them or neglecting them. Or don't go doing that. Make damn good sure it is in the best interest of the child. Hey, Bad Barney, come on up and join the panel if you want, or at least just drop that link so I can go over that. I'd appreciate it. That's in regards to, let's see here. What was it? He said, then they say he was taken to the hospital twice during the 20 years. And then he comes back and he says he went to the hospital twice in April of 2020, or excuse me, 2004. So there's a link. Come on up and drop me a link or come up and talk about it so we can get to the source of it. And greetings, disciple. And we're going to get in to the next video here, which is the full half-hour law and crime video. And let's see here. Yeah, it's law and crime. 8 days ago. Let's pull up their link. So go over to Law and Crime and give them a sub. And we got Sincere with us today. How you doing today, brother?
Hey, what do you know? I couldn't get this changed. This is bad for me.
Yep. I kind of figured that. So do you have a link you can put in the back chat, or you can put to the screen share?
It was on your video, the one that you were showing of the guy that was
the previous video I just did.
Yeah, it's right after the sheriff talks first, I think, or I couldn't get a timestamp on it because it's a live. It was like 1 hour and 31 something in there on that video that the sheriff says that they did a welfare check and took him to the hospital and didn't have any concerns. In 2004, they did. They took him to the hospital twice.
Okay. Well, I have to review that video, and if that's what they said, then that's what they said. Certainly would like to follow up on that for sure, and get the information on why they said he was in good condition, because I can't imagine in 2004. Well, 2004 was 21 years ago. Yeah, that would have been right when it first started. So yeah, I can see, but and again, I think in this one here, it even tells us that the welfare check wasn't necessarily that they took him to the hospital. I think it was just a welfare check where the worker went to the house to do the welfare check, and they were denied.
Okay. Well, I would just go about what the reporter said.
She said
they had taken him twice, once in 2004, and then it stopped. You were talking, and then when it come back on, it didn't give the other date. So yeah, you might check it. It was just when I saw that, I was listening to it, doing other things, and I thought, well, wait, they said they took him to the hospital before, and the sheriff, and didn't have any concerns. And I thought, which I don't trust them anyway, but.
Well, I'll have to listen to it again because I didn't hear the word hospital. That's my take on it.
Right.
If you heard word if you heard that they took him to the hospital, I would certainly question that. But again, April 2004, that would have been at the very beginning when they were having the issues with taking him out of school and everything.
Right. And that would have been, and then the other one, I don't know when it was. It just says that in that 20-year period that they had taken him to the hospital twice. And it may, it threw a red flag. Well, why didn't the sheriff notice something in the house?
Yeah. And see, right. See, that's why I want to go back, because again, if that was back in the beginning and Dad was fully capable and everything, he was taking him to the dump and stuff. Dad was active. Maybe the house was clean and everything, so it didn't look like it does now, 20 years later. See what I'm saying? So over time, things slowly change, and people don't notice that slow change. And particularly if you're a neighbor from the outside, they might still have the yard up kept, but inside the house it just slowly ran down and shit. And as you'll see, it doesn't look too hospitable a place inside.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't want to be there.
She might. Who else is in the house? Who else is in here?
My stepson is in here.
She might be acting like she allegedly cares in the slightest about her stepson in this body cam video. But this woman is accused of a crime that not even veteran law enforcement can comprehend.
33 years of law enforcement. This is the worst treatment of humanity that I've ever witnessed.
She allegedly kept her stepson trapped inside this home for 20 years. When rescued, he weighed just under 70 pounds and was 32 years old. Now she is under arrest, and there are major questions about the failures that would allow this to happen. We're on the case presented by Law and Crime.
And as I mentioned before, it is plural. The failures, a multitude of them amongst a multitude of people, just doing their job.
I'm Chris Stewart. It is hard to come to grips with what police say happened inside this home. You see this picture here. This is in Waterbury, Connecticut. Firefighters responded to a call here for a fire on February 17th. Inside that house, they found much more than just flames and smoke. They say they found a terrifying story of abuse and neglect, and they say this woman is allegedly responsible. This is Kimberly Sullivan. Here she is in custody. Police say that she held her stepson captive for 2 decades inside that home. Police say the man was kept in his room for 22 to 24 hours a day. Before I get into any more of the disturbing details of what allegedly happened in this home, let me lay out the timeline of the night that authorities responded to this fire. Let's begin.
And this is, it says technically it's law crime on the case. And I think this guy does a good job. He goes through it, and I tend to agree with most of what he's said in a lot of his other videos I've watched.
With the 911 call that we just received.
Oh my God. 911. It's 2 Blake Street. What's the address? Please hurry. It's 2 Blake Street. There's a fire. Okay. Oh my God. There's a fire. I'm trying to. Ma'am, what's 2 Blake Street? The TV. I don't know. My son, his stepson is in his room, and I don't know, he did something with the TV. I was sleeping. I fell asleep. See flames or smoke? Yes, come on, Steph, come on. Okay, can you get... Yes, we need an ambulance, please. Okay. Please, we need an ambulance. Ma'am, all right, you said something's on fire, and now you need an ambulance. What's going on there? Yes, his room, the TV in his room. Did he get injured? Is he on fire? Yes, he's injured. Please send the ambulance. Ma'am, I'm going to send the ambulance. I need to know what's going on and why they're going down there. Where is he injured? I don't know. He's kind of, I don't know. I don't know. He's kind of passed out. He's out of it. Please.
Thick mucus making it impossible to breathe.
Yeah, he's out of it. Please, please.
Warning signs of something potential.
You put him out of it.
Okay, what's your phone number just in case we need to give you a call back? Please. Okay, is the fire out, ma'am? No, it's not. Please.
The insanity that has to go through a man's mind to decide to set his room on fire in order to get attention, knowing that he might die trying to get that attention. This man was at his end. The intent to was kill. In my opinion, strongly.
I understand, ma'am. I'm trying to get information on what's going on there. Oh my God, it's like all the power in the house is out. I don't know if it's Lou or you. Okay, ma'am, just get out of the house, okay? I'm trying.
The denial of life's essentials is an intent to kill. Again, in my opinion only, of course, whether you like it or not.
Yes, I'm going to call my daughter. Oh my God.
Here's the newly released body cam video of what authorities found when they arrived.
Come over here. Go down the road. Come on. Come down. Come down. Who else is in the house? Who else is in here?
My stepson is in here. I'm trying to help him out. That's it. I have 2 cats.
Everybody's out?
Yes.
But your stepson's still inside.
Yeah, he's right here.
Okay,
Yes.
come on down the road. Come on. It's not safe to stay here. Come on.
All right, here he is. All right, my dog is shaking.
I know. Come down here. That's true. 87.33 victim. Fire victim.
Okay.
Come on.
My
80
dog
seconds
is,
right here.
I
Come
know
on.
my dog.
I know. Come on.
I'm coming.
You're seeing it. Got one victim right here. Who's the two over here?
What you just saw there at the end of the video was the victim, the stepson, being taken to the hospital. According to the arrest warrant affidavit, a Waterbury...
And I've watched this many times, and you just cannot see that stepson. So in the width of a man's between his shoulders, the one that's facing away from us, his hands holding him, and the hands of the other fireman facing towards us, but in the same frame, that little body was between those shoulders, and nobody saw him. I tend to believe that 68.7 pound report, and that, folks, is disgusting. To deny a man 5'9" the necessities of life to maintain a natural, normal body like any other man. Again, that shows me intent to kill.
Police officer described the stepson, known as male victim 1, or as we will call him, MV1, as emaciated. His hair matted and unkempt, was very dirty, and his teeth all appear to be rotten. Days later, in the hospital,
Teeth were all rotted. So yeah, even if he was had a welfare check, like I pointed out, that was 20 years ago. He was denied health and medical and dental and all that for the next 20 years. I'm pretty sure of it.
MV1 would speak with police officers and give details of what he says life was like over the last 20 years. Before I go into the details of that, here's what the Waterbury police chief said about what you're about to hear. This video is from the news conference courtesy of WVIT TV in Connecticut.
Because frankly, what was being reported was unfathomable to us at that point in time. Through
unfathomable. How is it unfathomable? You don't know about human trafficking, kidnapping, denial of medical, denial of dental, child abuse, neglect. You don't know those kind of things? How is it unfathomable? It happens every goddamn day, and you people of all know it. Tell me you're a fucking police officer and you think this is unfathomable. You can't be too goddamn observant. Again, my apologies if you don't like my opinion. Maybe you ought to start doing more than just your job.
those investigative meetings and through search warrants, we were able to seize physical evidence and conduct interviews and dig up some more information that corroborated the victim's story.
This is the Law and Crime Legal Alert. Did you know that children are being diagnosed with serious conditions like type 2 diabetes and non-alcoholic fatty liver disease? And research is potentially linking ultra-processed foods to these outcomes. Our partners...
Absolutely. You know, this is the crux of it, guys. Let me tell you a little story. Nice little convenient story about this nice, happy little family that lives in comfort and convenience of this false patriarch because it provides them a boob tube and processed foods and poisonous drinks where they can sit down on their nice, comfy couch and watch somebody else's dramatic, mysterious, murderous, heinous, comedic life, whatever it is, because it's so much better than theirs. But then all of a sudden they hear the sirens and they see the lights. So they get up off their couch and they look out the door. And here it is, couple blocks down the street, they're arresting one of their neighbors. What do? They go back to their comfy couch and do the same thing. Continue watching that boob tube. The next night, same thing's going on. They're sitting there watching that boob tube, somebody else's dramatic, mysterious, murderous, heinous, comedic life, eating processed foods and drinking the poisonous drinks, and all of a sudden they hear the sirens, see the light, they look out. Down the block the other way, and they're arresting one of their neighbors. They do the same thing. They go back to the couch. The next night, same thing. This time they look out, and right across the street, they're arresting their neighbor. The next night, it's the neighbor right next door. When do you think they're going to come to your door? Again, I remind everybody, I see American population turning into Hitler's willing executioners. It's sick. Everybody willing to just do their job for that mammon money and don't know first thing about their talents. Keep paying tribute to that false patriarch, folks.
At Morgan & Morgan are stepping in to fight to hold food companies accountable. They have decades of experience of standing up to big corporations, and they are ready to stand up and fight for families and make sure that they get justice. So if your child under 21 has been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes or fatty liver disease, visit forthepeople.com/food, or you can scan the QR code.
And I'm going to say no. No to this part. I don't think you should be involved in those claims because you did this stuff knowingly and willingly. Again, people, the facts about processed foods have been around for a long time, and you're the ones keep indoctrinating your children because you were indoctrinated, because your parents were indoctrinated. It's time to stop the chain. Quit doing the same thing everybody else is doing and learn a new way.
On your screen to learn more. According to the affidavit, the male victim told police he was pulled out of public school in 2004 when he would have been around 12 years old. When asked about his earliest memories, MV1 said he would sneak out of his room at night to eat and drink, and when it was discovered that he was doing that, he was locked in his room. He recalled drinking from a toilet because he was only getting 2 cups of water a day. MV1 detailed a life being allegedly held captive in this home by Kimberly Sullivan, who allegedly locked him in his room and would only let him out to do chores. Anytime he would be let out and be around someone, he wouldn't speak about what his life was like inside the home.
Yeah, that sounds like child labor. Only let out to do chores. Don't tell me you didn't have an intent. Don't tell me you were looking out for that child's best interest. Don't tell me you loved that child. Don't tell me you didn't do anything wrong, you disgusting woman.
Out of fear of being locked down even longer. Police say MV1's dad lived in the house until he died in January 2024, and he was confined to a wheelchair. Then MV1's captivity got allegedly more restrictive. MV1 said that he would have to go to the bathroom in a bottle and on newspaper. There are so many horrifying.
So as I said, it wasn't until after Daddy was gone that the restrictions got tighter. So were they imposing Daddy's rule? Or was she imposing her own? And again, I remind you, there were 2 full-grown women in this household along with this mother, this stepmother. They were her own biological children, following in mommy's footsteps, doing what mommy, and thinking it's just fine. Thinking about bearing their own children.
Fine details in the arrest affidavit that we read through. But this part in particular stood out to me when you try to comprehend what this man says his life was like for 2 decades. MV1 says that he was occasionally allowed to watch TV on the weekends. And once he had a black and white TV in his room, but then that stopped working. He said he would listen to University of Connecticut basketball and NASCAR on the radio near his door to be able.
And see, that small black and white television he had, it became unusable due to advancement in technology. So while the rest of the family advanced in the technology and kept up, they denied him that advancement. Again, intent. Denial of advancement in anything in life.
Be able to keep track of what year it was. He said he wasn't allowed to have friends, and the only time he was ever allowed to have fun was Halloween. The last time he was allowed to go trick-or-treating, according to CNN, was when he was 12 years old, and his last costume was a firefighter. And that leads.
So this implies that this behavior was had before he was locked up in solitude. Okay? Remember, the last time he went trick-or-treating was 12, and usually that was the only time he was allowed out every year. So that implies that this is behavior that carried on for an extensive period of time before he was locked up in solitude.
Leads us to the fire that
All right, Gabby from Vegas, let's go ahead and pack your concentrate orders. So your brownie batter went back in stock today. So you
allegedly set him free. MV1 says he set the flames himself. He says that he used a lighter that he had taken from his now deceased father a year prior. And he used printer paper and hand sanitizer. He told police that he read that hand sanitizer was flammable. MV1 allegedly told Sullivan the fire started because his radio malfunctioned, and then she let him out of his room. But she also demanded that he wash his face before he escaped out of fear that firefighters might notice his appearance. Then
knowing his appearance would affect the firefighters, she demanded that he wash his face. Again, a knowing intent. This woman is evil, and I do not know or understand how, again, all of the cracks came about along the way. All the other family members, evidently his father's side was the only one that has family, but it was a large family. Like I mentioned, my family on both sides was rather large. Why none of those family members? First and foremost, set thine house in order, because everybody's falling to this false patriarch. Wake the fuck up, you status I see.
in the final line of that paragraph hit me in the chest when I read it. It states that MV1 said he laid on the floor with the fire in the house as smoke was going through the home, knowing that firefighters would be forced to get him, believing it was the only way out of his situation. Then he was taken to the hospital.
He had to depend on firefighters that he didn't know, but depended on them to do their job. Astounding.
Where he is now recovering and then had the conversation with police. According to the affidavit, MV1 stood at 5 foot 9 inches tall and weighed 68.9 pounds. He told detectives that he started the fire because, quote, I wanted my freedom. He did suffer smoke inhalation during the fire. He's considered to
Want a little freedom, you got to burn in hell, huh? You say I'm the one that's psychologically off. You say people that would set their own room on fire might seem to be psychologically off. I think you're psychologically off if you're just doing your job.
to be in stable condition and is recovering at the hospital. While he's recovering, there are certainly a lot of questions about how this was allegedly able.
And again, that's not going to those public servants out there, folks. Let me help you understand. You're the ones, you moms and dads, falling victim to that false patriarch. You are the ones that are just doing your job and not carrying on the spiritual talents that you're granted.
Able to happen and for so long. Waterbury police say the Department of Children and Families made 2 trips to MB1's house in 2004 after he was pulled out of school because there were
Right there. That's the 2 welfare checks. They made 2 trips to his home because the school called him.
concerns from the children and teachers at the school that something was going on. The Waterbury police chief said this about those visits in that news conference, this video from WVIT.
We're doing some background investigation. There are 2 incidents that we had within our computer system of dealing with that address and with the family back in 2005. One was a request from DCF to do a welfare check at the location because children that
Thanks for lightening things up, Rocky. I really do appreciate it. Rocky Shepard says they will probably charge him for starting the fire. Amazing how it might possibly work out. That does seem humorous, but you know, that's the reality, folks. These people, when it comes down to it, they're in it for the buck. So if the budget says, hey, we got to charge this guy for arson because he started the fire and we lost money in it, then that's what they're going to do. Good point. Far closer to reality than a lot of you might fucking think.
the victim was familiar with hadn't seen him and they were concerned about him. Officers went to the house. The house was clean. It was lived in. They spoke to the victim at that point in time, and there were no cause for any alarm or any conditions that existed.
Yeah, see, at that time, the house was clean and looked well lived in and all that, yeah. But when you see the pictures of it today, you wouldn't make that determination. So slowly after time, things have changed and gotten worse.
That would have led officers to believe anything other than a normal childhood and a normal family existence was occurring. That was reported back to DCF, and that was the last that we were involved in that particular investigation. We were called back to the house in the latter part of April by the family, who wanted to file a harassment complaint against members of the school district, saying that they were continuously reporting them to DCF and felt that they were trying to get the family in trouble and have the family investigated. We have no further information about where that went, other than there was no proof.
Like I said earlier, when it comes to Social Security Act and all these state actors and everything, what they're doing here, when these people called the police for harassment, that's actually a valid charge, because I understand, folks, Child Protective Services, Department of Child Care, whatever, any of those state agencies and stuff, that's through a Title IV-D contract. And again, those Title IV-D contracts stem from a foster care and adoption system where those children of biological moms and dads aren't subject to it. When you understand the language and the personhood and that Fourth Amendment and your freedom of association from that personhood, but yet being able to be secure in it, just like your papers, houses, and effects, you understand there's a distinct difference between the person and your heir apparent.
Provided by the family that there was any type of harassment that was occurring. You know, as far as the school district's concerned, we are looking at those records now. We're working with DCF to look at records that they may have from previous investigations, and that's part of the ongoing investigation.
DCF told WTNH in Connecticut that they have no records related to MB1 and his family. They said that in that state, records are expunged 5 years after reports of neglect or abuse are considered unsubstantiated. Now,
however, as we see today, we still have school superintendents and principals and stuff willing to speak out on it as to their firsthand testimony 20 years ago. So the record can be reestablished. The problem is that in trying to reestablish it, you can't now go back and say, well, now we find it. Okay? See, this is the implausibility of that record according to your firsthand witness and the importance of stating the facts that are true and not babbling as a statist because you've been indoctrinated into their terms of art of speaking babble, thinking you know English and don't understand it. So when you listen to this video and I'm talking about biological mom and dad, I mean it. It is not a parent according to the terms of art of the legal industry under a Social Security Act Title 4D contract. See, that definition doesn't exist outside of that contract. If you're not actually involved in that contract, knowingly, willfully, and intentfully, knowing the full disclosures, then you are not, in fact, the parent. But you are, in truth, always a biological mom or dad with an heir apparent.
Now, you may also be wondering, what about other members of this family, about other people who are related to MB1?
Remember, that's what my question was. And again, he's going to touch on this, but he doesn't expand upon it like I've already done. What happened to him as far as continuing up and following up on those accusations and making damn sure people were doing their goddamn jobs to the utmost moral and ethical standpoint in the best interest of the child. Fuck their paycheck.
New York Post spoke to the man's biological mom. The woman lives in Meriden, Connecticut, which is about 20.
What? He didn't say they spoke to the female mom. He didn't say they spoke to the female parent. He didn't say they spoke to the woman. Like I said, the biological mom.
20 minutes from Waterbury, where her son was allegedly being held captive. She told the Post from outside her house, quote, "We are all trying to come to grips with this horror that my son had to endure." And quote, "He has family who love him so much and has never been forgotten about."
Then what about you? See, this is the biological mom that was married to the dad that ended up in the wheelchair that did all this, supposedly, right? Well, what happened to the mom? See, the mom signed over custody and had nothing to do with the child from that point on. Now, all of a sudden, she wants to let her feelers in and say, well, I was the biological mom, I feel bad. This is horrendous. I say it was horrendous when you gave that up to a legal false patriot to begin with because you didn't have the understanding. But I comprehend you too were indoctrinated like your mom and dad. So I forgive that because you weren't just doing your job. You were one of the bitch-ass slaves. You were one of the ones that were fucking fooled, just like I was. Just like my children are.
The Post says the woman would not answer questions about why she didn't allegedly rescue her son from this abuse. As for the stepmom, here's Kimberly Sullivan appearing in court. She is now charged with assault in the first degree, kidnapping in the second degree, unlawful restraint in the first degree, cruelty to persons, and reckless endangerment in the first degree. Here is what her attorney said outside of court, this per CT Insider.
Again. Oops.
I love these
right at
things,
commercial.
and I saw this 30 for $36 deal, so I
Sorry,
ordered
folks.
them to try.
So, again, here we have this attorney, again, disgusting. That he doesn't have the balls to look at this woman and tell her, listen. I have morals and ethics my own damn self, and I can't lie. I'm not going to let these courts perpetrate your lie. You're guilty as fuck. What I can do is help you accept your accountability and stand up to these people and let them know you can and will change no matter what the sentence, and hopefully they'll have mercy on your heart. Any other way, you ought to be fucking ashamed of yourself. Lacking accountability.
Absolutely. Yeah, so she completely maintains her innocence. From our perspective, these allegations are not true. They are...
No, you can't sit there and portray to me that from your perspective that they're not true. That tells me that you lie to yourself. You know the proper perspective because you have the facts. You're just going to try to twist those facts to match a perspective that you're going to present as a representation of the facts. Don't play your fucking games with me. I don't care if you're just doing your job. That's the problem.
Outlandish. I mean, she was blown away when she heard these allegations. She's adamant they are not true. This did not happen. And we look forward to being able to vindicate her and show that she's done nothing wrong.
Can you speak on, I guess, what your stance is, what she, I guess you say she's innocent. Can you just kind of expand on that?
She's never locked him in a room. That is absolutely not true. He was not locked in a room. She did not restrain him in any way. She provided food. She provided shelter. She is blown away by these allegations.
She's provided food. She's provided shelter. How come you told him to wash his face off? To provide him water and bathing facilities? Or did you make him go without that too? See, it's a pattern of practice, guys. And these kind of people right here, the ones that are supposed to be helping enforce the law, are the ones making allowances for preposterous ideas like this to invest. They don't give one fuck about this woman. They don't give one fuck about the case. They don't give one fuck about the child. They care about the investment and that they win. And if they can't win, they still make as much as possible. So draw it out as long as possible by dragging out the most preposterous idea and keep looping.
It is shocking. And what's more shocking to me is how someone can be falsely accused of such a thing.
You mentioned her husband passing.
To me, it's shocking that somebody could be falsely accused of this. Really. These are the kind of people you're dealing with. These are the kind of people you think, even if you have a good case and they're going to prosecute for you and you're not the defendant, these are the kind of people you deal with. Have fun. I don't play games with nobody. That's why I wear this short mustache.
Correct.
Potentially someone who was
the biological father. Well, I mean, he was the biological father. He's the one that dictated how his son.
Imagine that. See, now we have another attorney using the biological father term. Why is he doing that? See, is that the venue he's trying to defend in? I'm very curious as to how this is going to turn out because of this.
Would be raised. We think as the evidence comes out, you will see that she's not the villain she's being made out to be. Absolutely not.
You mentioned that the allegations were being corroborated. I mean, how are the allegations being
Well, the allegations seem to be based on the words of one individual and one individual alone. I did not see anything in the warrant to indicate any independent evidence to corroborate these allegations. So we'll see how they stand up at trial. I do anticipate a trial in this case.
See, he's only seen the case file. That's it. Dr. D-Head says it all seems like a strong argument for smaller communities and going back to the land. Absolutely. Roz Blackwood, greetings. She says, AL, Peril. Bad Barney, no bullet. Attorney is dog and pony for the court system and the people. Absolutely. It's just a show, folks. Nothing personal, just business. We're putting on a show and it's going to cost you. You want to come in and join our circus? Have a seat right there and sit down and shut up. Does that feel like something you want to pay for?
Given the shocking nature of the allegations, she's adamant. She's done nothing wrong.
Where's the boy now? Where's the
Pay attention here. Where's the boy now? Like I said, this guy doesn't know anything but the record.
I don't know. But you know, my understanding, he's based on my review of the warrant. There was no other person to corroborate any of the claims that were made, and we'll, at the appropriate time, we'll get into the motivations and the credibility of any witness.
Sullivan was held on $300,000 bail, and she was able to post that. So she is free right now.
So I got to ask, the living conditions they lived in, she doesn't have any extensive family members. She's working at a little shop at the mall. She's got two adult sisters or two adult daughters living with her. Don't know what they did, but somehow managed to come up with $300,000 bond. That's $30,000. Of course, they're all in it together, aren't they? Like I said, what about those two adult children? Of course, they couldn't have been in the workforce for very long. I mean, they could be as old as him, so 10 years. All living under the same household as Dad that just died not too long ago. And he's the one that has the extensive family. I wonder what he left him in a will and stuff. See, these are all interesting details and stuff that'll still come out later on. And like I said, they're only charging her right now. I see 2 more cracks. What about you guys? And I'm not talking about the cracks between their legs. I'm talking about cracks in the system that's saying, hey, this woman's guilty. But what about the other 2 adults that had voices that could have said something but didn't? 2 women who in their future might likely bear children of their own? Are those the kind of people you want to be parents? Are you going to let them slip through the cracks?
As this case continues and her stepson recovers in the hospital, her next court date is reportedly March 26th. The city of Waterbury and the community are now trying to help this stepson as he recovers in the hospital and faces a long path ahead when it comes to recovering from what allegedly took place.
At least 20 years. At least. If not the rest of his fucking life. You people are disgusting. And you know who I'm talking about. If it applies, I don't want to hear your cries.
This is a GoFundMe page that the police department linked to on its Facebook page. It's being run by a nonprofit called Safe Haven of Greater Waterbury. And at the time of this recording, it has raised more than $90,000. Talk more now.
And actually, I think it's over 115,000 by now. This was a couple days ago, and another site at that time showed it 110,000. So I'm sure more's come in. But neither here nor there. You know, how do you put a value on this shit? What is the eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth? Is it humane to give this woman eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, and lock her up for 20 years and give her 2 glasses of water and a sandwich a day? Make her come out and do chores once a day?
About a really difficult story is Marion Bracha, practice professor of law at Temple University and a former prosecutor. Thank you for taking the time to be with us. I know you in your career, you've worked some really difficult cases. What reaction did you have when you first learned about what police say happened inside this home for 20 years?
What EMF does, it starts to increase the amount of high beta and gamma.
Sorry for the commercials. My apologies.
Well, first reaction is it sounds like a house of horrors. It sounds like something out of a horror film. It sounds like something out of a Stephen King novel. It's almost something that doesn't seem real. But then when you hear the...
Come on. Let's stop this fucking nonsense. This shit's been going on for eons. You've been giving up your responsibilities as biological moms and dads to take care of your heir apparents, and no one else can do it for you. Yet that's the first thing you do.
The physical condition that the survivor was in, that the male victim was in, you know that it is all too real, and there is actually physical evidence of what he endured for all that time.
How common are, I know this, and we've heard from law enforcement that have said, the chief said in 33 years of his career, he's never seen something like this. But when you have cases where there is someone who's being held captive in a home, how common are these types of cases?
I can't say that a case like this comes down the pike every day. I can't say that this is a very common fact pattern that presents itself to prosecutors for consideration. There have been instances where I've seen and reviewed materials for captive-like cases like this in the past, but again, they're few and far between. And
okay, so I'll agree 20 years captive is one thing. And those kind of cases don't come down the pipeline very often. But I guarantee you, it is very common that reports are made that a child is locked up in a room. Usually starts with just a short time. And if they don't learn their lesson, next time it's double. And if they don't learn again, next time it's double. Next thing you know, it's a year. Next thing you know, it's 20 years. But you don't notice because it changes a little bit over time. And you're okay with that. You're okay with the little white lies until they become grand lies like this that only come about once in a lifetime. Really?
And the thing to remember with any case involving a dependent person or with a vulnerable victim is that these crimes go on behind closed doors, in the dark, outside of public viewing. These are not what we call quote unquote street crimes that can be captured by surveillance or poll cameras or a police car that's driving by.
That's why it takes family. See, we all have this false patriarch, this thing, Big Brother, keeping an eye on us. Because that's what we fail. We fail to be our brother's keeper.
Happens upon a crime scene. These are things that happen really in the dark and are not often discovered by investigators or by the people who are best suited to help.
Police say that he was pulled out of school, public school, in 2004. And then he was, I guess, considered to be homeschooled at the time, and he just fell through the cracks along the way. How can we track somebody who is pulled out of school, but then it appears that there's no record whatsoever? I know DCF went to the house twice and then said that at the time nothing seemed to be wrong, but How does someone fall through the cracks?
And again, it's not there is no more record. They established a record through witnesses. Those witnesses are still alive and testifying today, reestablishing that record. It's just that they can't go back and reinitiate and reinstitute their decision. They can only go by the evidence they have today. And by the evidence they have today, that would be automatic. Oh, yeah. But that's what failed. And that's why we're at where we're at today, 20 years later.
Cracks like this.
I think the only phrase to use there is administrative failure. Children, and especially dependent children, children who are being...
Their administrative failure, where you, mom and dad, have to give up your authority of your children to them, to the administrative procedure over them. You did it.
Being homeschooled, children who are suspected of enduring abuse should not be able to fall through the cracks or have their cases closed by a cursory review. How does that happen? It happens with overburdened systems. It happens with overworked social workers and caseworkers. It happens when, quite frankly, there isn't the systemic priority placed on safeguarding the most vulnerable and potentially vulnerable victims of crimes and neglect like this.
Then reportedly in Connecticut, after 5 years, when there's a report of abuse, so in this case, a DCF social worker went to the house, found nothing in their mind at that point warranted any sort of charge or abuse, so it was considered unfounded. In Connecticut, those records are expunged after 5 years, so they don't.
And that's because when they went to the house, they were denied inspection, and there wasn't anything they could do about it. They have to have consent. There was no warrant. No, you're not going to inspect. Have a good day. And because of that, they could find no substantial evidence of neglect or abuse. They can't just make it up by saying, well, they denied me inspection, therefore they are. That was a proper and accurate denial. Again, we are supposed to be our brother's keeper. We're not just supposed to be doing a damn.
Don't exist anymore. How common are those laws, and what's the point of those laws?
I think laws and timeframes like that, time limits like that on archiving and on record keeping of certain reports is actually pretty common. And if you think about it, it's not just record keeping when it comes to social services, record keeping when it comes to child and youth protective services. Those time limits exist in almost every industry, in almost every.
And they're going to speak on. She's going to speak on this, I believe. In regards to that record that we have nowadays, 2006 Electronic Records Act. So now, and this is what I try to help people comprehend, is that they can't get rid of the definitive record system. I have to be able to make a handwritten document as to my testimony, my story, my journal. I do not have to do it electronically. I retain the right to do it empirically, as I learned as I was growing up in my origins, as was tradition back then, and not by a change in technology that allows me to do it electronically. So the principle here is that now that record and being expunged or destroyed or anything like that is no longer existing. We now have an electronic record, whereas after 2006, things entered into that electronic record remain. It's a blockchain record. In other words, it decentralizes information so that when one CPS center gets that information, it goes out to a certain number of institutions according to that Bureau of Vital Statistics jurisdiction record I show you for statistical record keeping. Yeah, it's a matter of how many children are abused in the United States every year. How many children go missing in the United States. Those are statistics. Again, I urge everybody to learn how to rebuild that family foundation. That is I think that will be one of the most effective means of cutting child trafficking. You're the ones that put them in that public education system where they're dogmatically taught and bullied in all these different concepts. You want to bring your child up in your ways and your spirituality, then you better get back to the spiritual foundation, teaching them your talents as you've learned so that they can go out and learn more.
Every facet of our society, even things like bank records or tax records, things.
So in other words, what I'm saying is, again, it all comes down to languages. And like I spoke about earlier, the body language of the kid when he was flinching. You have to start paying attention to this stuff. When you meet other people and you look at their behaviors and how they act and behave and respond, that's a different kind of communication. In our physical world, we have all kinds of communications that should be signaling our psychology, our spirituality, not just some words on a paper or something somebody says.
Things like that are pretty regularly expunged after a certain number of prescribed years. So unfortunately, I don't think this was any malfeasance. I don't think this was any wrongdoing.
It's like a dog that comes up to you with his tail straight out and his teeth barred, as compared to a dog that comes galloping up to you with his tail wagging, his hind end back and forth, side to side, his tongue wagging out of his mouth, and he's, yeah, you know, there's a different body language. Subtle differences in people that we should be able to see. The ways people talk to each other. The way your children respond to other people, just like the way your dog responds to people. They have a certain intuition. And usually a lot of it is expressed through some kind of body languages or verbal cues.
This sounds like something that was in line with the agency's policies regarding record keeping and the length of time that records are kept. But this is a fairly common practice, again, not just in the social service realm, but in most facets of our society.
Is there a reason why, though, in this realm that they would do that? I think back in the day, you only have so much room for so much paper, in an archive room, and then now everything's digital.
Right. See, now everything's digital. You got so much more room, and the record will last a lot longer than paper that can be eaten up in 100 years by mice or mold or mushrooms, whatever.
What's the reason that it would be
floods?
Sponge? Is it protecting someone who
fires?
Who maybe
acts of God. Hallelujah for every breath I take, for it results in an act of God. May you hear my voice. I will not shut up.
Was accused in a wrong way, and then they don't want to have that on their record if it was something that wasn't true. In this case, we'll see how the court case plays out.
Yeah, I think both of those considerations are at play when it comes to expunging these records. I think you're right that back in the day when these were paper records, there was physical limitation on storage of however many boxes or folders of information that a particular building or storage unit could hold. The same is somewhat true of our digital archives. There are only so many terabytes that exist in terms of our cloud storage or in terms of these.
And this is where it's bullshit, because we have all kinds of clouds and servers, and that's the thing, that you can just keep building these database servers and computing them until you, again, as technology advances, and put them on smaller and smaller devices. And these devices they're talking about are crystals. One day you might be able to find out how to store it in a bucket of water. You know, it does have its own memory.
Agencies, storage, that's not making
And is its own crystal form. Oops.
an excuse for it by any means, but that there is still that consideration of the storage space available for a forever maintenance of records. But I think you're also right that when someone is investigated or when someone is suspected of wrongdoing and they are cleared, there is a societal interest in clearing that person's name if there are no subsequent reports, if there are no follow-up concerns with that person's behavior or that person's care of a child or a dependent person. And so there is a privacy interest there in terms of
Gabapentin is
A privacy issue there.
bringing you closer to amputation. These are 3 symptoms that are signaling
clearing their name and not having records attributable to them for suspected wrongdoing. I need them forever and always.
So if you're a prosecutor on this case going forward, what happens now? Because you have this, certainly the story that male victim 1, told authorities. I mean, there's just so many details of it that are just horrific. He himself is a piece of evidence just with the condition that he was in at the time. What are some of the pieces of evidence you would need as a prosecutor?
He himself is a piece of evidence, just his condition at the time. Like I said, no man 32 years old, 5'9", should weigh 68.7 pounds. That is definite evidence that somebody deprived this man of certain necessities of life. Because I see no man being able to do that to himself. $68.7 pounds. And went to the length to set his room on fire in order to get attention after 20 years. Yeah, I don't see a man going to those kind of lengths unless he's absolutely at his end.
If you were to take this to trial?
So I think there are a few steps of the investigation that I'm sure that are underway and being considered as they proceed toward prosecution. Number one, the personhood of male victim 1 has been deprived or jeopardized for all of these years. And so my number one priority as a prosecutor would be
the personhood, like I mentioned earlier. Train your child up in the ways of the Lord, and he will not falter. And when you teach him what the personhood is versus being a child of God, you'll understand the difference. That he is not the person. Okay, the person is only a presentation in a second form, whether it be verbal, literal, a sculpture, a painting, a video, an audio. It is just another form of the real thing, and it is described as a noun or an adjective or a verb. Now, if you want anything, I would assume it would be the verb, because every breath I take is an act of God. As a verb, it is an act of God. So then, as an adjective, a description of the real thing, it would be living soul. As a noun, that's where we have the personhood. That's the Keith Orland the little Keith Orland. That's that name thing, and that's hearsay. I am what I say I am. And I say I am a living soul as an act of God, known as a child of God. You can define me any way you want, but that would take an acceptance of reality that you only describe me as a noun or otherwise. That's your description. Again, no one has authority, and this is the baffling thing about this beautiful English language. Because though it's so twisted and serpent-like, it'll bite you if you don't understand it. But once you learn it, and you learn how to follow everything up and do your research, don't believe me, don't believe the neighbor, don't believe the government, don't believe your mother, for crying out loud. Do your research so you know. And that's getting back to the roots and origins of where these words come from and what was their intent. What was the intent of using the term parent in the legal industry? Well, it wasn't to describe the biological mom and dad. It was to describe their person as in the record. The individual's name and number identify the record, people. It doesn't identify you. That's a personhood. You, yourself, once being a living soul, is a child of God, known as an act of God.
To safeguard that person.
In my opinion, of course, in plain English.
that autonomy, that decision making, and the respect and the dignity that is owed to this victim, to make sure that he is participating meaningfully and willingly in the prosecution without having choices that are.
And when we use that term child of God, that term God, my definition of God is the source of life. So I am the child of the source of life. Simply put, again, plain English.
Foisted upon him that aren't of his making. So I would make sure that he's really involved in the process and that his voice, his preferences, his needs are really heard and attended to moving forward, because obviously he's been through 20 years of having those needs and that voice completely disregarded. So he would be my central focus. There is, of course, the need to gather physical evidence. So I believe his physical condition, his physical state, as you mentioned, is an important piece of evidence. So documenting, photographing, recording how he is physically, his size, his weight, his physical and mental well-being currently after he was discovered after all of these years. And there's also physical documentation of the living conditions, where he was for all of those years. The fact that there was plywood and a series of locks on his door. The fact that no one had seen
plywood and a series of locks on his door. And again, those series of locks was on the outside. So they weren't to help him lock himself in and keep him away from danger, which if that was the case, that would be reason to just fucking leave, not lock yourself in. And these locks were on the outside, showing that somebody was locking him in.
Seen him in however many years. I would be going about the business of finding family members and interviewing them, asking them about their involvement with the family, with the defendant in this case, the caregiver, or the should have been caregiver, to find out when the family member's access was restricted to this male victim, when the last time they saw him, and what the circumstances of that of seeing him were. So I'd really be trying to get a holistic view of this person's experiences and living situation, or I should say surviving situation, over the past 20 years, and you piece that together with physical evidence, with documentary evidence, with photographic evidence, and certainly with narrative evidence of those closest to him, or purportedly close to him, or close to the family.
I look at her defense, and her attorney was pretty defiant outside of court, saying that she is completely innocent. We're going to prove this wrong. A lot of things that you would expect a defense attorney to say, especially early on in the case. I think one argument that she is going to make is that he could have left at any time. He didn't talk in the case about any sexual abuse. He said there was one instance of physical abuse. I think it was slapped years ago. He says that happened. But other than that, it wasn't a physical abuse case, at least according to the arrest affidavit. He was allowed to go outside to do chores. And I think you could see the defense make an argument of, well, he could have left and seeked help at any time if it was really that bad. As the prosecution, how do you push back on that if that's the way the defense wants to do?
So the pushback that I would seek as a prosecutor is to really focus on the psychological harm, which is not just something that exists in one's mind, as it were. It's not just something illusory or imagined. There are psychological and emotional factors that go into holding someone captive, that go into the kidnapping charge, which I think a lot of people hear kidnapping and they say, well, was he taken from one location to the next? Was he taken across state lines? But there is a definition of kidnapping, which means to hold against one's will, to hold essentially captive for the purpose of.
Yeah, to hold one captive. It's not to move, but to hold one captive. Okay, and we're going to go over the definition of kidnapping when we get done here. And that's the whole point of this. This was 20 years, but remember that first video that we watched in the stream, and they talked about special education and little padded rooms. Those people don't have licenses. And even if they did, there's a certain particular administrative process, right? So I'm putting a caveat to all these public education centers that are kidnapping children. As I interpret this code, the definition of kidnapping, which we'll watch or we'll go over. But pay attention to what she's saying too.
Exposing that person to serious bodily injury. And so really focus on the psychological harm, which is not go into holding someone captive, that go into the kidnapping charge, which I think a lot of people hear kidnapping and they say, well, was he taken from one location to the next? Was he taken across state lines? But there is a definition of kidnapping, which means to hold against one's will, to hold essentially captive for the purpose of exposing that person to serious bodily injury. And so serious bodily injury in this case would have been the deprivation of food and water, the deprivation of medical services. That is the exposure to serious bodily injury in this case. And so the pushback would be, sure, he was allowed outside to take the dog out or to attend to chores for a few minutes a day. But what about the psychological trauma that had gone on for decades before, and for all those decades ongoing, that communicated to this male victim, one, if I leave or if I try to leave, is there a greater harm that will come to me than submitting or.
And like I said in that first video, that kid was flinching. How's he going to behave the rest of his life with other people if they make slight movements? See, this is the psychological abuse that goes on with the physical abuse that they incur. This is the stuff that exponentiates that broken family, because then when that kid goes home and he's trying to interact with his family members and they're just trying to play around and have fun with them, and he flinches because of their movements.
Or succumbing to this captivity. And so that is really something that needs to be explored and explained to the jury, that holding this male victim captive for all these years in the conditions that he was kept in really deprived him of the ability to make that choice, the ability to say, well, I'm just going to walk away from this, because in a victim's mind like this, that choice just doesn't exist.
I mentioned too for the defense, and I don't envy the job of the defense attorney in this.
And before I get too far, I want to mention too, I wanted to go back to the mention about the putting a special education student in one of those padded rooms. And the guy said he ran into the wall. Instead, come to find out, he punched him. But even the mention of a padded room would be knowing that he might be harmful to himself and need to be restrained rather than let loose in a room where he might hurt himself. So exposing him to endangering himself rather than restraining him. Again, these people don't have the necessary medical licenses to be doing this. So if they're going to keep placating that these children are on some kind of autistic level and need special attention, then maybe they should give them special doctors with appropriate medical degrees instead of people with dogmatic concepts that they're trying to teach students, and they don't care about them students. They're just doing their job. And of course, according to that job, that allows them to abuse them students or put them in a padded room if they can get away with it. Well, sure, if the principal's going to back you up and keep it quiet because he really doesn't want to ruin his own fucking name. See, it's when are they going to come after you? Someday, Mom and Dad, you're going to have to accept the accountability yourself, because you're the ones that put them in these conditions, in these situations, without doing your research first, without knowing who these people are and what their backgrounds are.
This case is just
you trust them because they're in public service, which is a public trust. What a fallacy.
There's such you're pushing back on a story that is just, it's so horrific. And I imagine if this arrest affidavit was put up in court where they're talking about how he listened to UConn basketball games so he was able to understand what year it was, that would be really effective to a jury. How else do you see the defense potentially pushing back on the horrific allegations that are being made against their client?
Well, unfortunately, aside from the physical condition of the victim, so the fact that he was in his 30s and weighed only 70 pounds, and the fact of his living situation, the fact that there was the plywood across the door and the locks on the door, I could imagine a defense putting forward a story or a version that perhaps the danger was coming from the victim, and that these steps, these lockdown conditions that were put in place to keep him in captivity were actually put in place as a safety mechanism or a defense mechanism by the defendant. So I would anticipate the defense to explore and perhaps do some finger pointing to the victim and to say that this is not someone who was safe, this is not someone who was physically or mentally reliable, and someone whom perhaps the defendant feared, and so she was acting out of self-preservation.
Yeah. See, remember that insane defense I was talking about earlier. So they're going to, at least this is what her go-to would be, is, and she calls it an expectation, of course, is to propose some kind of insane ideology like that the defendant is actually the victim. But again, that would also pose that if the defendant is a victim, then the defendant's two daughters would also be victims. And of course, before that, it would have been, Daddy was a victim too. See how perverse that lie goes?
I don't know if that would carry the day with a jury, but I can imagine a world where that is a potential defense.
Yeah, it's again, it's a tough job. I think in that case, for everyone's innocent until.
And like I said earlier, I can't imagine any defense. In reality, I can't imagine any defense for this. I couldn't stand up with a woman like this and say that she was innocent. I could only do my best moral and ethical push that you're guilty. They're going to find you guilty no matter what kind of trial you go to. And if you take it to a full-blown trial and they find you guilty, they're probably going to give you max penalty. The only thing I can do is hope that you will understand God's mercy and that He's your only true judge, and that the best we can do before these people who think they are your judge and will judge you is to get the leanest sentence possible by owning up to it. And I can help you with that. Can't help you with lying. That's the problem with this world.
Proven guilty, but for defense attorneys in this case, she was given $300,000 bond. She was able to post that. What do you make of that part of the story?
in most jurisdictions where charges have no available bail, ordinarily that charge would be homicide. So in most jurisdictions, in most states, most criminal offenses do have a bail amount that is available to a charge. Remember that bail is not intended to be a punishment. Bail is intended to secure a defendant's presence and participation in the criminal case, in the prosecution. So if there is no indication that this person is a flight risk, if there's no indication that this person has previously left town or gone on the lam, the fact that she has a private counsel is also something that is taken into consideration. She has already invested in her defense, so she is putting out evidence or an indication that she intends to fight this case, which also makes it more likely that she will appear in court. So the availability of bail is not a surprise to me because there is fortunately no homicide charge here. But at the same time, there would be conditions attached to her bail, things like a stay-away order. She will likely be ordered to have no contact with the male victim. She will certainly be instructed that she's not to have any contact or attempt any contact with other prosecution witnesses if there are family members who are sought to be interviewed or testify on behalf of male victim one.
And see, that's the thing I'm still looking at. Remember, I keep mentioning these two daughters. She's got two full-grown daughters that lived with them, and I don't understand why they're not part of this.
So there will be conditions attendant with that bail, but it's not a surprise to me that bail was set and that she was able to post a percentage of it.
And then just lastly, as we look at the story, and so often you hear about the missed red flags that were there. And in this case, you had DCF that in 2004, we don't know what the condition of the home was in 2004, but apparently it wasn't reaching the level that they needed to do something, though people were concerned about it. When you look at the system as a whole, what can be done, just from your career and your experience, what can be done to prevent these cases where these red flags are missed from happening?
Well, my number one question would be, after 2004, when this person was still 11 years old and was ostensibly being homeschooled until the age that they could have declared emancipation or declared independence and left the situation of formal education, where was the state? Where was the oversight? Where was anyone making sure that homeschooling was actually being done, that he was being cared for, and that he was in a safe and, if not loving, at least educational environment? I think if there had been some oversight in terms of what condition his homeschooling or his alleged homeschooling situation was, there could have been more eyes on his condition, and perhaps the sad state that he was surviving in would have come to light much, much sooner.
Yeah, it's a horrific story, and there's going to be a lot of questions that will continue on as this case and investigation.
Again, that's being put on the state, and I want people to understand that's not what I'm doing. I'm putting it on you, moms and dads, before it can be put on the states. You are the one that is supposed to be that child's hero. You are the one that is supposed to be acting like a god to that child. Our next one is that definition of kidnapping I was telling you about. And this is from LIIWEX, the go-to in definitions, particularly when it comes to the U.S. Code, Westlaw. Kidnapping. Kidnapping is a crime at common law, not under administrative law, folks. Kidnapping is a crime at common law. And you noticed it is a fault of the administrative cracks. Again, those are those Social Security Title 4D contracts under administration. They still are not talking about the biological heir apparent or the biological mom and dad. Look at the definitions and see that they are talking about your persons, as if though they're running a contract, because that's all it is. It's nothing really personal. It's just business, and I need your person to operate that business. Personal jurisdiction must be volunteered. Consisting of an unlawful restraint of a person's liberty by force or show of force. So if you put a wall up in between a man and his destination, that is a immovable force. It is still a force, and you have restrained him from his movement. Liberty. The term liberty appears in the due process clauses of both the Fifth and 14th Amendments of the Constitution. Again, that Social Security Act says that none of these people can take charge over a child against the objection of either parent or local parentis. You have to correct them and let them know that the person is that such parent, but you are in fact the biological mom of the said biological heir apparent, so named in the same instruments. And you have no right to take anything of mine under the Fifth Amendment without just compensation and a necessity for military use. As used in the Constitution, liberty means freedom from arbitrary and unreasonable restraint. Arbitrary meaning contractual. That's why when these contracts come under litigation, it's an arbitration. They go to arbitration. They don't sue each other. They go to arbitration. And unreasonable restraint upon an individual, not the living soul, not the mom and dad as the biological mom and dad, the individual. 552A, records maintained on individuals. The individual's name and social security number identify the record. Freedom from restraint refers to more than just physical restraint, but also the freedom to act according to one's own will. This is where we have that free will. And if I want to go to from point A to point B, from my place to the grocery store and back, and I have to cross this parking lot, you can't tell me I can't cross that parking lot. According to the international laws of rite of passage, I have the right to pass over that parking lot because, in fact, the land cannot be sold forever, for it is mine, and ye are strangers and sojourners with me as a child of God. And in all the lands of your possession ye shall grant a redemption. So as I'm traveling across that parking lot that supposedly belongs to a Baptist church, and they want to try to tell me I'm trespassing, I have a little hard time believing in their God. Deuteronomy 24:7 in those scriptures says, anyone caught stealing one of the children of the brethren of Israel shall be put to death. Ye shall put evil away from among you. See, folks, I'm tired of watching it repeat itself day in and day out. Like I said, I was part of that foster care and adoption system. And like I said, I love my parents that adopted me. I just don't totally agree with them. And there's not a damn thing I can do to help them. If they're the ones that believe the police are their authority, then they're the bitch-ass slaves. Sorry, Mom and Dad. I used to be a bitch-ass slave too. But I no longer let them shackle my mind. See, people want to run their mouth about how government means mind control. Yeah. It means you govern your mental thoughts. And if you fall victim to the United States false patriarch, then you are a United States citizen. You're part of that United States government. You're part of that United States mind control. I'm not a United States citizen. I'm not a resident. I know those definitions. What do you got, brother?
I think you did a good job. That was enlightening. It puts me to thinking, try to put yourself in that boy's place and just think about, a person. Oh, I can't imagine. That's and nobody, and he's lost. Nobody ever around, no neighbors, no nothing. They had to see something.
And that's what bothers me. People are literally walking around blind because, again, everybody's so willing to put up with this little lie. So they put up with this little lie, and then the next thing you know, there's another little lie attached to it, and another little lie, and another little lie. Just like the story you sit on the couch night after night, night after night, same thing. Little lie after little lie after little lie. When do you think the lie is going to catch up with you? When do you think just doing my job is going to come back to bite you? If you keep believing that your boss is going to cover your ass, I think you've been duped, because it always comes down to you and your ability to recognize the spiritual aspects of what we're dealing with, rather than just the person across the counter.
Well, Keith, I appreciate you having me up here.
Yeah, come back anytime. Anytime I have an open panel, anybody's welcome. But like I said earlier, tread lightly, because I don't like the drama. I'll talk about it like this because it's part of reality, but it's only because I want people to open up the eyes to the reality, realize the real lies with your real eyes. You know, it's happening right before us, and we're not blind. We're just willing to put up with the little lies. And that's, like I said, I see Americans slowly turning into Hitler's willing executioners. And that's why I wear the short mustache. It's not just a trigger for everybody else, but it's a reminder to me that I don't want to be a Hitler or one of his executioners, period.
Yes,
Therefore, my best duty is to remind everybody else. I'll wear it every day.
Right. Well, thank you, Keith, and we'll see you on the streets.
Thank you, Barney. You be blessed.
You too.
And you guys know me. I love you, but I don't give a rat's ass whether you love me back. That's to say, I don't care if you hate me. I don't care if you don't respect me. That's on you. So may God bless you, and have a good night. We'll see you next time.